So let's
What's the
begin.
capper?
Welcome to all. This is the meeting of the Carlisle Select Board on Tuesday, April 5th. And I'll review the agenda and then we'll come back and begin the meeting. We'll start with community input. And so if there is anyone on the Zoom call, because we don't have anyone in the audience here in person yet, the way you can indicate you'd like to offer comment is just to either raise your hand with the button down below, or if you put your regular picture up, video up, you can just wave your hand and we will call on you. Then we'll, I should really do this first. I'm just going to jump out of order here and say that I do want to welcome Steve Ledoux, who is our interim town administrator, on behalf of all of us here on the select board and also the town of Carlisle. We are so glad to have you here. Thank you very much. Steve brings a very, very long history of experience in municipal government, and we know already he's going to be a big help to us. So many happy days ahead, we hope.
Thank you, thank you.
Not for you.
Well, just gotta get a little rust off, but I'll be good.
Yeah. We are not going to put you in charge of the Zoom
No, do not.
meetings
not do that.
as your first assignment.
Well, it'll be a very short meeting if you do that.
So anyway.
Put him in charge.
Then we'll have the town administrator search update from me, and go through some cemetery deeds. We have a dog hearing at 7:30. And then Carlisle Master Plan, Jack Trost, the chair of the committee, will join us, and we have an hour set aside to provide feedback to him, representing the Master Plan Steering Committee. Following that, we'll discuss some last minute preparations for the town meeting. And then we'll have some appointments to the Transfer Station Action Committee, the town administrators report, liaison reports, if anyone here has one to make, approval of the warrants, and adjournment planned for 10 p.m. So with that, let me go back and ask if there is anyone that would like to offer community input this evening.
Do we have the full Brady Bunch? Is that the universe of people?
I believe so. Right, we're seeing Tori, everybody that's on the call. Yeah, because you can do gallery too, if that makes a difference.
We don't even have enough for the Brady Bunch.
Okay, all right.
Great.
Well, welcome to those of you that are here. So we'll just continue then. In your packets, you will find the proposed appointments that I hope we will make tonight for those who are going to serve on the screening committee for the permanent town administrator. And those individuals are Mark Way, who is the managing partner of the Leadership Management International Company, who is also a resident of Carlisle and has also been helpful to the board actually in previous years around goal setting. Peggy Wang, who is our Carlisle town clerk, Brian Soros, who's the chief of the Carlisle Fire Department. Both Peggy and Brian are also residents of town. Victor Liang, a member of the Carlisle Finance Committee, Deepa Chungi, who's the chair of the Carlisle Parent Teacher Organization, Madeline Blake, who's the chair of the Carlisle Planning Board, and myself as chair of the Carlisle Select Board. And this group, the task for this group will be to work with John Petrin, who's the senior associate at Community Paradigm Associates, which is the group that we hired to post the job posting for the Carlisle town administrator position. And he will be guiding this screening committee through their work, which is to then present to the Carlisle Select Board a short list of highly qualified finalists for our consideration. So a motion to make these appointments would be in order if someone is willing to
Just
do
say
so.
so moved.
I'll
and
make the
that was
motion.
Pretty much read
Yeah,
the whole thing.
I'll make the motion. I move that the following people be appointed to the Town Administrator Steering Committee. I think I'll say, by looking through the list, I know they're all town residents, but the addresses will be added later. Barney Arnold, Chair of the Carlisle Select Board, Madeline Blake, Chair of the Carlisle Planning Board, Deepa Chungi, Chair of the Carlisle Parent Teachers Organization, Victor Liang, member of the Carlisle Finance Committee, Brian Saros, the Chief of the Carlisle Fire Department, Peggy Wayne, the Carlisle Town Clerk, and Mark Way, Managing Partner, Leadership Management International, who's been involved in many other committees.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none? I'd like a roll call vote, please. Arnold, aye.
Oscar Lilo, aye.
Brown eye.
Modell, aye.
Reed, aye. Thank you very much.
Go team.
Go team. Before we go further.
Madam
though,
Chair, could I just
Yes.
add that I did talk to John Petron today. Deadline for applications is this Friday, the 8th. He said that they've had a lot of inquiries. He didn't want to give me a number because he's afraid that would scare other people away, but he's pretty confident. Y'all have a good, you'll have a good pool.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Steve. Hi, Peggy. You've just been appointed to the screening committee. Congrats.
That'll serve you to come late. You got homework. You were a little later, you would be on the transfer station committee too.
Be sure to see the
And
town
you showed
clerk
up.
and get sworn in, would you, please? Be sure to see the town
How
clerk.
does that
and
work?
get-
How does that work?
Oh.
Assistant.
I thought you like one hand and the other hand. We have such, we have a such justice of the peace?
Yeah, great. So thank you, Peggy.
A little bit of town trivia, I love it.
Yeah, but nothing, that's great. I was just gonna comment on something else, which is I got a note from Mary Lynn Bone about not being able to get onto the Zoom, and I think it's because we changed it, and so I'm trying to think where, I got that on my
I
phone.
sent her the updated link and Jeannie as well, so both of them are on the same one and Jeannie's on it.
Okay, so you think she has what she needs?
Yeah, she may just not have checked her email.
Oh, hi, Mary Lynn. Okay. Sorry, we had to change the Zoom link, but did you get it? Get the new email with the new link earlier this afternoon?
I did, and that didn't work for me. It said the meeting was starting at 10 p.m.
Oops.
So
Did did you hear that, Jen?
No,
Well, Mary Lynn just said,
she forwarded me the packet this afternoon, and the link that was in that one said the meeting was starting at 10 p.m. So
I don't.
forwarded me the old one.
anyway, we'll see if we, well, thank you. We'll see.
I didn't forward a packet.
Yeah, well, we'll see if we hear from anyone else, but you passed on to Jeannie Janesco the link, Jen?
Yeah, let me just confirm what Mary Lynn's email is. Maybe I got it wrong.
I can send it right now
We can
too.
do that later, that's okay.
Betsy sent it to me, so it was.
All right.
I can send it to you separately.
We're all good.
That
Thanks,
wasn't-
Jen.
That wasn't the
Okay.
issue. The issue was that it said it started at 10 p.m. She got it.
Oh, she's checking the 10 p.m. Sorry,
Yeah.
And I'll forward her. I'll forward this to Jen.
okay,
I just sent it to her.
okay. Let's move on while we're waiting. Let's move on to the cemetery deeds, which is item 4 in our packets. And there are several of them. The word has gotten out.
It's out, yeah. Get
Yeah.
'em while they're hot.
I know.
While they're
So,
200 bucks.
Trying to get our petty cash up.
Yeah, who would like to move the cemetery deeds, please?
I'll do it.
Thank
I
you, Kate.
move that, and I'm going to do them all at the same time. Deed 772, a select board vote to transfer the land on the public burial ground to Jeffrey Johnson and Sharon Kenny of 64 Blaisdell Drive, Carlisle, Mass. At Green Cemetery, Lot D 149, grave 1, 2, and 3. Deed 773, I move that the selected board vote to transfer land in the public burial ground to Karen Blake and Constance Tassinari of 15 Carolyn Way, North Andover, Mass. At Green Cemetery, Lot D 152, grave 1 and 2, and they were former longtime residents of Carlisle. Deed 774, move that select board vote to transfer land in the public burial ground to David Williams and Betsy Jackson of 48 Pheasant Hill Lane, Carlisle, Mass. At Green Cemetery, Lot D 153, graves 1 and 2. Deed 775, move that the select board vote to transfer land in the public burial ground to Elizabeth C. Barber, 100 Aldershot Lane, Carlisle, Mass. At Green Cemetery, lot C17, grave 3. And deed 776, move that the select board vote to transfer land in the public burial ground to Esther Kraft of 826 West Street, Carlisle, Mass. At Green Cemetery, lot D170, graves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just to say, I guess to echo Luke, if we need to raise, anytime you rattle the sword about raising fees, we could just, boost the petty cash. That's a good strategy.
We'll see if we get it all now. We don't have to worry about.
Well, no, we'll raise some other fee. We'll raise some other fee and they'll race to the, great.
All right, I'd like a roll call vote, please. Arnold, I.
Oskalilowai.
Brown eye.
Modell, I.
Reed, aye.
Thank you. All in favor. Then let's move on.
Should we jump to,
We're a little early for the hearing, so let's take something else. Let's look,
Appointments, transfer station.
yeah, why don't we do the two appointments that are in our packet? And this is down near the end of the packet for Carrie Patel and Karen Panico for the Transfer Station Action Committee.
I
that the
move,
Oh, go ahead. You got it up? Go ahead.
I move that Karen, we appoint the following individuals to the Transfer Station Action Committee: Karen Panico, 187 Topet Road, for 1 year term expiring June 30th, 2023, and Carrie Patel, 85 Topet Road, for 1 year term expiring June 30th, 2023.
Second.
Great, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Carrie, you're on. I think she's on. You're a glutton for punishment. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It
All
does make you think what's going on Tophet Road, though, doesn't it? They're both. from there.
Right, right.
I'm super excited about this committee. I really am. There's a lot of really great people on it, and it's going to make a great impact.
Yeah, I agree, Nathan, and also people are eager to be on it. That's what's great about it. It wasn't something that arms had to be twisted. So yeah, it's really good. All right, hearing no further discussion, roll call vote, please. Arnold, I.
Oskalilowai.
Brown eye.
Modell, I.
Reed, aye.
All right, it's unanimous. Great, thank you. I'm wondering if we should also take up the, under the town administrator's report, we should not do number 2 about the community choice aggregation, because that's going to take a little time. But could we do the Gleason Library request for a 1-day liquor license, Steve?
Yes,
For that?
yes, sir. The library is looking for a 1-day license for an art reception on May 6th from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. They're all set with the liquor liability insurance, and I would recommend approval.
May I have a motion?
I move the select board grant a 1-day wine and malt beverages license pursuant to MGL Chapter 138, Section 14, to the trustees of the Gleason Public Library for an event to be held at 22 Bedford Road, Carlisle, Mass. On May 6, 2022, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., subject to the applicant providing a host liquor liability insurance certificate.
Second.
And I did notice that it has been already signed off by the police chief, which we require before issuing these.
Any discussion?
What's the risk premium for?
A liquor liability case, somebody leaves the premises, has an accident, or
That's enough coverage?
I believe so. I think our insurance carrier looked it over and recommended that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, let's have a roll call vote on this, please. Arnold, I.
Oskalilowai.
Brown eye.
Modell, I.
Reed, aye.
Excellent. I'm looking down. Should we do the,
Let him finish his, maybe he can get the other. We have
I'm having minutes.
I was gonna say, yeah, Steve, do you want to do the, number 3 and 4 in the,
Sure.
report?
The town's been notified by the State Department of Standards that they no longer will be doing our sealer and weights and measures services because we went over 5,000 with the 2020 census. So I started to reach out to some other entities to see if maybe some town or whatever could do it for us, because in talking with Linden Health, we can only figure out there might be only one scale in town, and certainly no gas stations. So I initially reached out to Concord, but interestingly, they actually contract with the State Department of Standards to do that. They pay like $6,500 a year. So I have reached out to them, haven't heard from them as to what they might charge us. I also found out that the Northern Middlesex Council on Governments also does that service. I've reached out to them, but have not heard back yet, but we'll be working on it. It should not be that much of a problem, but.
You mean we can't calibrate it against the scale
That's
behind
what
you there?
I was telling Barney that. I said, geez, I've spent half my day looking at weights and measures, and then I look over there and some more.
What do we have? A scale at transfer station? Where do we have a scale?
Well, Linda felt it might be Ferns in their deli.
Oh, that scale.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Why wouldn't Ferns be responsible to calibrate its own stuff?
because the state, anything that's measured and sold in the state requires a sealer. So if you go to the gas station, you'll see
Right,
a
but
seal.
doesn't the provider doesn't the owner of the business have to do that?
I think, well, there is a fee. There is a fee that's associated
Right,
with
but I mean,
I mean, is it our responsibility?
yeah, if it's a transfer station, that's ours, right? But-
Right.
Yeah.
But if
Well, I
a
mean, it's
business,
kind of
it's-
consumer protection to make sure the scales are.
Yeah.
Well, given all the stuff Matt's got to deal with, that we can pay for the scale calibration.
Well, I'm just wondering if they sell anything by weight, though. I mean,
I don't.
They have a deli there. They have a deli there. They'll slice meat for you.
Not right, not at this moment, but generally, yes.
okay.
And I'm not sure about the farm stand on 225 near Kimball's. I don't know if they sell veggies by the pound or whether they have a scale or
Oh,
not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well,
So was the state providing it for free or subsidized?
Yeah, if
for
you're
the-
under 5,000, they were doing it, right,
Okay, all right, well, all right.
That's what happens when we grow.
right.
All right, thank you, Steve, and thanks for taking action so quickly. Let's see, do we need, yeah, I guess this is more an announcement. Steve, do you want to describe the expanded solid waste ban?
Right, so DEP has announced that they've added some items to the solid waste master plan, the 2030 solid waste master plan, including mattresses and textiles that will be a part of the list of materials banned from disposal or transport in Massachusetts, and lowering the threshold on commercial organic and food waste to facilities generating more than a half a ton of these materials per week. And they'll only take effect November 1st, 2022. So your transfer station committee may want to be thinking about this.
Yeah, we already actually are doing both the mattress and textile recycling, so.
You have to recycle is what they're saying.
Yes,
Right,
right.
you have
right.
to, can't put it in the solid waste.
So what is, I mean, this is maybe a little off topic, it's more of a Barney question, but you know, I routinely, and I bite my tongue, it's full of welts, but you know, I routinely see people not recycle what they're supposed to recycle. Like,
Yeah.
what's our liability when they don't do that? Like, somebody throws a mattress in the, you know, in the solid waste bin, and the poor guys at DPW, I get it, they don't want to be cops. So, you know, the guy throws his mattress in. I mean, I don't feel like I should be calling that person out. That's not the Carlisle way. So I, you know, bite my tongue, put my head down, like.
Well, I think the Transfer Station Action Committee would say that one of their charges is to have people more fully understand what can and cannot be recycled, and to do the both education and sort of friendly monitoring, you know, at the transfer station to increase awareness.
I think the
That's-
signage is going to really help a lot with this. And luckily, I think that they give a warning first. So
Yeah, good point, Nathan.
Yeah,
Okay,
And also too, I mean, the guys at the DPW, you do see them with the hook fishing stuff out quite a bit.
Yeah,
They do. No, I feel bad for them, you know, but I mean, let's say on a more, mattress is sort of dramatic, but you know, cardboard in the waste.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know.
Yeah, no, well, that's why,
It's
I mean,
simple stuff that they could do, but they
Yeah.
just don't take the ownership. And on the rare occasion, this is a little venting, but when, on a rare occasion, when I would say something, oh, I don't believe in that stuff, it all goes in the same bin, like, what am I gonna do with that line?
oh, yeah, no, well,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think-
no.
I think particularly around Christmas, they will speak up because we have in the past gotten dinged around cardboard in the
Solid waste.
compactor.
Yeah,
And I've been there when they've called people out on it and said, hey, put that in the other one there because, you know, we're not allowed to put that in there. But,
Well,
but
that's
I think it is focused around Christmas because that is when we normally get really dinged for it because everybody's just throwing everything away after Christmas, all their packing boxes.
Right, so, but anyway, I applaud the transfer station committee and I hope you are able to sway people, because it really is, for an affluent community like ours, we should be much better, so. Do we have time to do the EV charging?
well,
I
we've
think
got,
we do.
no, we've only got 9 minutes, but why don't we take a quick look though, and we may find something later through the course of the
Actually,
meeting.
one, Madam Chair, I
go
had
ahead,
one other
Steve,
thing I
sorry.
just wanted to mention that wasn't in the report because it's like just happened. We had, our provider for natural gas, for whatever reason, the town went, the agreement went out of being, and we ended up going on the default rate. So the finance director just went out to bid for natural gas, and the default rate was like 0.9 something a therm. We have locked in a rate of 0.82 a therm for 2 years. And the school's contract will be up in 2 years. So the thinking is we'll be able to join together and maybe get a better deal through natural gas in another 2 years, because the school's paying like 0.68 right
Yeah,
now.
I'm surprised we're on that with the school already, but I'm glad you
Yeah.
checked. It's
Yeah.
not Russian gas, is it?
Well, that's one of the reasons the price is going
Russian
up.
gas is real cheap right now.
Only if you're paying. Rupees, rubles,
Rubles,
yeah.
Right.
No, he's backed away from that.
Oh, is it?
Thank you, Steve. Let's take a quick look at the agenda proposed for the 19th. We are going to hear from the audit committee, and this is our annual FY21 audit report presentation. We'll have, I'm sure, information in our packet for that too. We are having the discussion with Sherry Kennan, the director of Timbernook. And while I'm on that, just a reminder that it's tomorrow at 3:30 for those of us that can make it to the site visit with Sherry Kennan, you know, meeting at the bottom of the parking lot here. And I do think some of the abutters are gonna show up as well. We will get an update. So with the deadline of this Friday for the resumes to be in for the town administrator, John Petrin will be here to update us. And the hope would be that that screening committee has had its first meeting by then. Final town meeting preparations, we have the CPA committee recommendations there, Luke, unless you want to say something more on that tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I can say it during the night, because I'm not at the meeting on the 19th.
That's right, so maybe during liaison time? Yeah,
Yep.
okay, thanks. Town administrators report, the rest of the standard things. And I'll just point out that the finance committee meeting is this coming Monday. And right here at 7 o'clock.
Hearing.
Sorry, their budget hearing, sorry. Yeah, their standard budget hearing in advance of town meeting. To review that with,
You know, hot ticket, you should
yes,
make sure you get your ticket now, because
right, it'll be full.
it'll be full.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think in all my years, we had like 2 people.
Yeah, well, we don't have many people at this meeting either, but
Only
I
3,
would
I'm
like,
going to it, so.
I was gonna say, I'd like to encourage anybody who is on this meeting to come to those hearings.
Yes.
They are interesting and important, and they do have a bearing on all of our tax rates.
Yes,
So-
absolutely. All right, good. We do have 5 more minutes before the hearing is scheduled to begin. So I'm going to wait till 5, for 5 minutes, because we're required to do that by state statute. And in the meantime, let's see what we have here.
We can do warrants.
Do the what?
Charging station, you know.
No, that's
No,
gonna take more than
it's
5
gonna-
minutes.
David, you keep trying, as we have
So-
less and less time.
So the DPW, they have three old trucks that basically they've been using for parts and they want to get rid of. So I think typically, they have no value, right? So they want to scrap them. Typically, we declare those as surplus, right? But,
Statutorily, yeah.
right, so, but we have to declare that,
Board
right?
has to, yes.
So,
You know, the same way we do with the computers.
yeah, exactly, right? So is that, does that have to be written up or is that
Yeah.
something we could kind of vote on tonight?
I think we have to be specific as to what
Exactly
what it is. yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, I can follow up with Chris and get
Mhm.
the information. Okay,
All right, so maybe that's
That's-
something to note, though, for that meeting on the 19th.
yeah. I think
Okay.
it's simple enough. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'll get that info from Chris.
Okay, great.
VIN numbers or something?
Are there any other liaison
Description,
reports
best
that
description we
somebody
get
has
from
to make that
vehicle,
take less than 3 or 4 minutes?
Well, we could do the warrants,
Okay, great.
Oh, that's a
That's
good
just-
idea. Yeah, take a look at the warrants there. We don't,
down bills.
right near the end of your packet. There's a summary on, if you're looking at your packet, it's page 58. This is something that Kelly's been providing for the last couple meetings, which I think is
Yeah.
very helpful. And the kind of the highlights of the expense warrants that I approved last week before she went on vacation.
Is the
I don't,
health, dental, or over what period does that cover? The MIA, health, dental?
I don't recall, but it might be quarterly. I could be wrong, though. I don't know, David.
Do we have an insurance committee?
We do, but it hasn't had a meeting for quite some time.
I
We
mean,
probably
really-
need to have
we
a new
probably-
one.
Who's on the insurance committee?
I was, I was one of the
Okay.
last time, but nobody is, you
I
know,
mean,
And Kim has been, this is a committee that she was putting together, am I right? Kim Kane?
Well, statutorily, it's supposed to be an insurance advisory committee that tends to have employees on it
yes, it
because
has a lot of
Right,
employees, yes, and
right.
teachers as well.
Yeah.
So.
Didn't we,
we
didn't we
need-
appoint people to that at the beginning of the year?
I don't, yeah, I think we did, because I think I got appointed to it for this
Yeah,
year,
that's-
our representative anyway. But nothing, you know,
We haven't,
since I'm not,
we really should meet. I mean, insurance is pretty
Absolutely.
important. We talked to Steve the other day about risk management. You know, insurance is a key piece of that, so
so
I would encourage us. I'd be happy to serve if.
copious
well, why don't
list.
we,
Kate has
well,
too much to
let's,
do.
we can go back and look too, to see what we did in January in terms of approving or February,
Yeah.
whenever we did that, we can go find that
I think it was
information.
like last summer.
Oh, you do? Okay, well,
Yeah.
we can figure that out.
Nothing has happened since we voted the increase in the
The
last year, the
percentage,
percentage
yeah.
last year,
Right,
and I
the-
don't think the
Going to 55%,
has
right,
met since,
right.
so.
But the committee should also have representative of each union and a retiree as
that's-
well.
It does,
Okay,
it's how it's constituted,
But we just,
but
There a
hasn't
FinCom
met.
member on?
it hasn't been driven by anybody.
right,
Kate, is a FinCom member on?
There's a FinCom, yes, and I know Linda Veneria's on it, and then, you know, Steve Mack, and, yeah, all the,
okay. So that's
But
to
it-
be followed up
yeah,
on,
and it may be because the unions have been a little busy negotiating too, so I don't know,
yeah.
you know.
I'll just say that it is on the website. It's Kimberly Kane, Tim Goddard, Steve Mack, Kirk Bishop, Linda Venaria, Jennifer Pike, Anush Coates, Chris Cyrene, Nancy Harvey, James Darr, and Kate Reed.
Okay. Yeah,
think
but
it
I
was
would
Kim's
imagine that TA
responsibility
is the
to
one that
convene it.
should be the, either you or Kim should be
Yeah.
the one that's
Right.
the mover
Convenes
and the
it.
shaker on this
Yeah.
thing.
Tim could be the retiree now on the committee.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
right.
he's on the committee, so he can't retire.
No, he could be the retiree on the committee, because there's supposed to be a retiree.
Yeah, we don't have one of those.
What's he doing? Is he all right?
Yeah, he seems to be better. All right, well, thanks. That's another thing to add to the list. And it is now 7:30, so that's good timing. We'll go back to that part of our agenda, which is the dog hearing this evening. And I want to pull up my notes on that. So I see we have here Jean Delano, and also Matt Svatek. Thank you very much, who are our animal control officers here in
Can I
Carlisle.
interrupt for just 1 second? Is this a public hearing that we need to open?
We do, but I was just going to introduce who's here. I'll do
Okay.
I'll do it in the meeting, yeah, shortly. And then, sorry, are you Ronnie and Steve? So Steve Moreau and Ronnie Green? Yeah, hi, welcome. So they're the ones that filed the complaint. And then I believe Jenny Merrill, are you on the phone, on the Zoom? Great, there she is, who's our town council. And I don't see any representation from the dog owners at this point. Is there anybody on the Zoom call? I don't see them. Okay. So we're going to officially open the hearing, and I would like a motion to that effect, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Let's do a roll call vote, please. Arnold, I.
Oscar,
Brown eye.
Reed, I.
Thank you. So this is a hearing of the Select Board held pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 157, Paragraph 157, and Section 14.6.7 of the town's general bylaws for the purpose of determining whether the dog, and now we do not have a name so far. Does anyone know the name of the dog or dogs in question? Okay. But the dog dog or dogs at 40 Laurelwood Drive, Carlisle, Mass. 01741, is to determine whether the dog is a nuisance dog and determine the appropriate remedial action to be taken. So I just want to briefly explain the process that we're going to go through. So the Select Board is acting as the hearing authority, and tonight we're going to hear from various parties that are involved in the complaint. Everyone who wishes to offer testimony will have a chance to do so. During the hearing, the chair must recognize anyone who wishes to speak, and during testimony, no one else is allowed to interrupt or otherwise disrupt the speaker. I will invite members of the board to ask questions of anyone offering testimony or others offering comments. We also have our town council, Jenny Merrill, to guide us during the hearing if needed. Once all the testimony and the comment has been received by the board, I'll take a motion to close the hearing. Then the board, as the hearing authority, will deliberate based on the evidence we've received and the testimony that's been given. This deliberation is for the members of the board only. As a reminder to the board, this is a nuisance hearing, and it's not a dangerous dog hearing, which is what has come before us previously. So as we're listening to the testimony, what we need to be thinking about is whether we will determine that this dog meets the criteria to be determined a nuisance or not. And if it does not meet the criteria, we then dismiss the complaint. If it does meet the criteria, then we deliberate and determine the remedies that we're going to apply. So unless someone has a procedural question about any of that, I'm going to go ahead and proceed. You good? Okay. The first thing I need to do as the hearing authority is to swear in anyone that's going to be offering testimony. And this is just the formal way that the state requires us to do this. But we're a friendly body. We definitely want to try to figure out a good solution to this. So don't be concerned about the formality. So first of all, that means Ronnie Green and Steve Moreau, if you wouldn't mind standing up and raising your right hand, and then repeating after me. I, and then you say your names. Do solemnly swear that the testimony I'm about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. And you can have a seat for a minute. And then I also need to swear in the other individuals that will be offering testimony. So Matt, will you be offering testimony? Okay, if you would stand and then hold on 1 second, because I can do all of you together. I'm allowed to do that. So Jean, are you going to be offering testimony? Okay, if you could please stand. And the dog owners, are you
Just an interested party.
An interested party. Are you thinking you will offer testimony?
I have no testimony to give.
Okay. Anyone else interested in offering any kind of testimony or comments? Because if you are on the Zoom call, you can stand and do this from home. So what I'll do is I'll say aye, and then you put your own name in there, and then I will have you repeat after me the rest of the swearing in language. So I do solemnly swear that the testimony I'm about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you very much.
Jonathan has his hand up.
Excuse me?
Jonathan has his hand up.
Oh, Jonathan DeCock?
Yes.
Hi, Jonathan. Did you want to be sworn in, or did you have something different?
Yeah, no, you can, I live in the neighborhood, so I'm willing to offer some commentary as well. So if you want to swear me in, that'd be fine.
All right. So say after me, please. I
I, Jonathan DeCock,
do solemnly swear that the testimony I'm about to give
do solemnly swear the testimony I'm about to give
is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. So
Yep.
first, I'm going to call on those that filed the complaint, which is Ronnie Green and Steve Moreau. Would you like to come up to the podium so that we can hear you? Yes, please.
So the Zoom, it's so the Zoomies can hear
You
you.
know what, if you'd rather pull up a chair, you can sit at a chair here, but we do want you to speak into a mic so that everyone can hear you.
Doesn't have to be that formal, but they have to hear you.
Yeah.
Come on up, please.
You can both move the chairs up if you want to.
Yeah, just bring your chair if you like.
And we have in our packets, just to remind everybody that we have their written complaint to us in our packets.
Rick, are you gonna be a character witness or?
Thank you. And really, no need to be nervous. We just want to hear what your experience has been.
Everybody?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So does everyone have a copy of my complaint?
Yes, we do.
So that I wrote actually in the complaint that this has been an ongoing problem since mid-November. And I went back to my notes and it's actually been an ongoing problem since October, which is a pretty long time. And basically there are two dogs at 40 Laurelwood. They bark incessantly from first thing in the morning throughout the day, sometimes throughout the night. They have a doggy door through which they come and go with no intervention by any human being. So no one has to get up to walk them, let them in or out, and they just have free reign and they bark at absolutely everything. I have called the police and spoken with the dog officers on multiple occasions. We only call if the barking has continued unabated for 3 to 4 hours minimum. I mean, and this is just incessant without the dogs even taking a breath. So as I said, we've only called when it's gotten to the point where it's been going on for 3, 4, 7, 8 hours. And it's just driving us crazy. We're on Milne Cove Road, the dogs are on Laurelwood, but their property sort of backs up onto ours. When the dogs are barking, we cannot hear the television in our own home, no matter how much we turn up the volume, with all the doors and windows closed. We literally can't hear. We have been driven out of the home on numerous occasions because of the barking, and that's just not right. We've lived here since 2004 and actually Steve since 1998 or 1999. And we're surrounded by dogs. There are plenty on Laurelwood and also we're on the pond on Mill Cove. There are several across the pond as well. They all bark. It's not an issue because it's relatively controlled. It's just these dogs are incessant and they're very aggressive as well. When I don't walk down my driveway anymore because they charge at me, and they don't they must have an invisible fence or something, because they've never crossed that. But they still come running toward me, barking very aggressively, and it's just not a pleasant experience. So I drive down to get the mail instead of walking down to get the mail. So that's basically what our experience has been since October. We love it here. We don't like to make trouble for anybody. And we were asked in the beginning, when all of this first occurred, if we would allow time for the dog owners to do whatever training was necessary, or to make arrangements for the care of the dogs, walking, anything like that. We gladly agreed. But it just does not appear as if any of that has happened. I would like to make one sort of correction to my own statement here. In the last week to 10 days, it has been significantly better. So I don't know, I know Jean, you had a conversation with them relatively recently with the dog owners, so I don't know if it is a result of Jean's conversation, but in the past week to 10 days, it's been almost fine. So if it stays like it has been in the last week to 10 days, we would be fine.
Right, right. And if I could just add, early on, when we were getting really frustrated, we tried to contact the people who lived there, and they wouldn't answer their phone. They wouldn't come to the door. We could see them in the house. They wouldn't answer the door. So.
And we have been told by the dog officers that they have been rather unresponsive to the dog officers as well.
Okay.
So.
Anyone here have a question? Yes.
I have a couple. So,
Sure.
to your understanding, did the dogs arrive mid-October, or were the dogs there before and something changed?
I believe, and I don't know this to be accurate, but my understanding is that one dog was already there and a new one arrived in October.
And do you have any idea, size or breed?
Again, these are better directed to the animal control officers, but they are some German Shepherd. They're either German Shepherds or a German Shepherd mix. They're both big. They do have no bark collars on them, but they haven't done a thing.
And you don't ever observe the owners actually walking them or interacting with them
Never.
socially? No.
Never.
We saw them once a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
The male of the couple was in the backyard, and the dog was just sitting there hanging out with him.
Yeah.
And we were in the driveway.
Usually
so.
it's right. It's usually
But
lack
yeah.
of attention and, lack of stimulation.
Right,
so.
the dogs are out by themselves all day long.
That's
We
too
know
bad.
all the dog walkers in the
You
neighborhood.
have, you have any idea from the pattern? I mean, are these people who leave the house all day to work or whatever and come back, or you don't?
Unknown.
I mean, you don't see cars in the driveway, or there's no,
They apparently had a big party a couple of days ago,
okay,
but other than that, no.
you can't tell.
No.
Well, there are lots of times when there's no lights on in the house.
Okay, so.
From our perspective, we're not like right there, but
Okay, thank you.
The
Thank you.
outdoor lights are on all the time.
the outdoor lights are on.
All the time. To me,
You can't? I'm kidding.
so,
You didn't know that.
so one other thing I'd like to add.
Withdraw the question about breed.
Oh, okay. One other thing I'd like to add, to my mind, we did read the appropriate statutes and laws. And to my mind, these dogs are the very definition of nuisance dogs. We're reasonable people, and if it would be.
I'm a dog lover.
I mean, we're both dog lovers, and as I said, we have no issue with any of the other dogs in the neighborhood and have never had. But we are reasonable people, and this is just disturbing to the two of us. And also, it says in the general laws that if there's an ill person residing in the area that's disturbed, I also qualify as an ill person. Which I'm happy to get into the details of that if anyone wants to know about it or not. But to both of us, these dogs are, one in particular, I think the new one is the very definition of a nuisance dog. I do have some recordings on my phone, if anyone has any interest in hearing what it sounds like. And you'll understand why we've been driven so crazy.
Yeah. Let's hold off on that just for
Yep.
a few minutes. Anyone else on the board have a question?
No, so the bylaw, I think the well, necessarily, I think the bylaw is 15 minutes, right? Not anymore? Oh, okay. When did that change?
Last round of updating the dog.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
a couple years ago.
yeah. All right. I was on that committee. I should know that one. Yeah. But no, 3 and 4 and 8 hours. I mean, yeah, no, I kind of echo what Dave says. It seems like, yeah, they must leave.
I feel sorry for the dogs, actually.
I do
Yes.
too, we
So
do
do we,
too.
yeah.
We do too. I mean, and they sound, they're barking, they sound distressed. They don't, you know,
Probably
it's not
are.
happy barks. They sound distressed.
So when the dogs are inside, right, is it muffled? Is it less? I mean, or is it, oh, is it only when they're out or is it when they're in?
No, when
Just
they're
read
in.
through some of those.
When they're in, if they see something outside through the window
Yeah.
of
They
the
come running
house, they come running out.
Or they come
Or,
out.
or they'll just stand at a couple of times they've just stood at the door and barked, and we can still hear them in our house.
But it's not as bad when
Right.
they're inside. But it's not evident that the doggy door is ever closed.
Yeah.
You know, like at 11 o'clock at night, maybe close it until 7 in the morning or something. It's not evident that has occurred.
Yeah, no, the reason I ask is because we have to try to think of remedies, right? And
Right.
obviously, we're new to this too, right? But if, keeping the dogs inside would be, getting rid of the doggy door, that sort of thing would be, at least a partial fix. That's one of the things that we could implement. So that's why, yeah.
Yeah.
And as Fran said, it's been better recently, so maybe they've already done some of that and we're not aware of it.
Yeah. Or maybe word's gotten out that there's gonna be a hearing.
Right.
Yeah, they did
But
receive,
something
they
seems to be-
did send a return receipt.
They did.
They
yeah.
had received the notice of the hearing. Yeah, that's in our packet.
One,
I could have sworn that dog barking was either part of our noise control or our animal control bylaw, but I guess we're just following on Mass General Law at this point.
Right. That's correct, I think.
one final thing, you know how the process when we call in is to call the police and then the police get in touch with the animal control officers and then the animal control officers get in touch with us. One of the most recent calls I had with Gene, he called me about a half hour, an hour after I had called into the police. And he was on the road and we were on the phone for a little over 27 minutes, according to him in the car. And the dog, he had called me on our landline at home. And the dogs were barking the entirety of the conversation and he could hear it the entirety of the conversation. And I think that's one of the things that he's here to attest to today. But
We hope so anyway.
yeah, we hope so.
All right, well, thank you. That's all that's required of you at this point. So, yeah, that wasn't so bad, was it?
I'm not a good public speaker.
Yeah, you did well, thank you. Yeah, feel free to go back. and
roll
have a
back?
seat. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
That's right, roll back.
so no recordings,
You know, let's see if we get to that point. But we know that you have it, which
Okay.
is good, and I will note that.
and I do have logs,
Uh-huh,
just notes I took of the days and times. I didn't start this until late December, a couple months in. Days and times and when I called and when I didn't and.
you know, you can submit that as evidence too, right now. Yeah, you can give that to us if you're comfortable submitting that, and we can include that in our,
I'll read it over before.
okay. All right.
Make sure there's nothing.
Anything else got logged in there that you
Yeah.
want us to know about?
Vanities, yeah.
That's right, right. Okay, all right.
Is our intention to like close this tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
unless There's some
So
reason.
then those notes don't really matter.
I think he's right. They
Yeah,
don't matter.
okay,
Yeah, don't worry about looking through them. If you're not submitting them tonight, don't worry about looking through them.
yeah. So Matt or Jean, which one of you would like to come first to offer your testimony?
I'll start first because I
Okay.
was, I think on the beginning end of it, right? And then
Yeah.
Jean's been kind of lately.
Do you want to just take that
Yeah,
over? to
that's
the
what I'll do.
podium?
I'll just take it over here.
Standing, okay, thanks. This is Matt Svatek, one of our animal control officers.
So we received many calls from them. I think we have at least a dozen documented of us going there. There are many more calls than that where they're just phone calls. Dogs were definitely barking in the background every time they called. They called for reasons because the dogs are barking. So what's gonna have to happen tonight is you guys are gonna have to determine what the threshold for nuisance is and how long the barking goes on or what kind of barking it is or whatever. I don't think there's any argument that the dog's barking. We've also received conversations, not documentation, from other members of the neighborhood who also say, oh yeah, that dog barks all the time. Or those dogs bark all the time. We did have some conversations finally after, I want to guess a month. Unfortunately, I don't have my log in front of me, but after a month of trying to get in touch with the homeowners, every time we got called, we went down there and there was nobody home. And if they were home like they experienced, they weren't answering the door for us. The doggy door is built into the slider on the rear deck, so the dogs can just come and go. There were times that I was able to get them back into the house and shut the door so they couldn't come back out. But, you know, not knowing when they're coming home or if they're coming home, that's not really a fair thing to the dogs either. So that wasn't done often. At times, I would sit up the street or down the street from their house and wait before approaching the house to see if it's a constant thing or if it's just when, say, people are going by. I think it probably depends on the weather or the way the sun's shining or something, because there were times where I'd sit there and they'd be quiet and then a car would drive by and they'd bark. And one Saturday, I think I was there for close to an hour and somebody must have been having a party on the street because it was like just car after car after car. And yeah, they were barking at everything that went by, every squirrel they saw, everything. So I definitely see how that can be disruptive. I think, what did we decide? They were 1 and 5 years old, Athena and Apollo. The story the owners told us was they had an older German Shepherd that passed and the newer one was to, you know, not replace, but whatever you call it, get another one. And that's the one that kind of spurs on the barking sprees, if you will, the younger one. So I know that they've tried things. They've said they've tried training. I don't have any evidence of that. I didn't ask for a receipt or anything, but they said they've tried training. I know they've seen, tried no bark collars, because one of the times that I got called down there, the Amazon package was torn apart and there were pieces of collars littered all over the lawn. So they had to actually order another set of them.
Dog's referendum on the collar.
Yeah, dog's payback. They actually had to order another set of collars and I've seen them on the dogs. They're long-haired dogs. They might have short prongs. They don't necessarily work all the time. I don't know what brand or model. I'm not going to speak to that. But the point is that they don't work all the time. So it's not that they're not trying to do things. I think maybe they're not effective. Their methods aren't effective enough. I don't know what you've said to them in the last week to make it better. But whatever the case, I think a more effective method of barking control needs to be done.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Jean?
So I'll, Gene Delano. Hi, Ronnie. So I will testify to the barking dog on the phone for 27 minutes during a call. And I've been over to this address myself a number of times, both because of the call and to follow up on the previous call, because as Matt mentioned, and Ronnie mentioned, there's no response at the door. The owners licensed the animals earlier this year, and their information was passed to me from Peggy Wang, the dogs' names and their ages, and also contact information. And again, I left messages that were not responded to. I did speak to one of the owners about a month ago, I think, a month and a half ago, after another call. And I stressed that, in my opinion, the free access to the outdoors is the problem, and that they need to take measurable steps to mitigate this problem, because it's not getting better. The bar collars, I don't think work if they're being used. I don't know what the problem is, but mostly my opinion is access to the outdoors. I am a dog owner. I am a reactive dog as well. My dog isn't allowed to bark more than 15 minutes because I remember the old law. I don't have neighbors, but I certainly, if I had neighbors, I would take further steps to make sure that they're not disturbed. There are, according to the police log, there were 14 incidents logged between October 22nd of 2021 through March 26th of this year. And that doesn't,
What'd you say, 27?
14.
Oh, 14. I'm
from
sorry.
10/22/21 to 3/28/22. 14 incidents, and that doesn't count Matt sitting there on surveillance. That doesn't count me stopping by and speaking to a neighbor who didn't give testimony tonight, so I don't know if I could say what she said, but it's an ongoing neighborhood issue, and more so for Ronnie and Steve because of where their house is positioned, and again, free access to the outdoors. So, do you have any questions for me? Okay.
Thank you, Jean.
Gene, I have one question, I'm sorry. Any other parties registering complaints? Other neighbors?
Can I tell you, or is it hearsay?
No, I mean, through the police, not,
Oh, not to my knowledge, no.
thank you.
Steve, did you want to come back and make a comment? Can you come up to the mic? Sorry, just that's so everybody can hear.
Just one clarification, and I have no idea whether it's relevant or not, but these people aren't the owners of the house, they're renters of the house.
Okay, thank you. All right, Jonathan, you had indicated you would like to offer some testimony or comment?
Sure. So Jonathan DeCock, 130 Oak Knoll Road. I live about a mile actually from this property, but it's the only way in and out of the neighborhood for about the 40 houses that live here. And there are sidewalks that immediately abut the property. And there's a wooden fence, and I presume an invisible fence that keeps the dogs constrained. But the fence is right on the sidewalk. I mean, like within 6 inches. And the dogs do bark from the time that they see you on the sidewalk, certainly, until long after you're passed beyond their seeing. And that's a good 500 feet from the people's house in either side. So I would say there's a range of a quarter mile where the dogs are barking when you walk past. And a lot of the people in the neighborhood walk on these sidewalks. It's not an uncommon thing. Also, the bus stop for the entire neighborhood is right at the base of the hill, and the children have to walk past these dogs. And I have noted on a number of occasions that the children explicitly go out of their way to leave the sidewalk, cross the road, and walk on the road to avoid being close to these dogs because they not only are barking, they sound very aggressive. And because the sidewalk is so close to them, it's I can imagine being a young child, it's certainly terrifying. I know when I walk my dog, I do the same thing. My dog is afraid of the noise that they're making. And so we walk on the other side of the street to get past. So I would say that, in my experience, I don't hear them from my house, but my house is a mile away. However, every time I walk by, the dog is barking continuously while I am within range of hearing it. And so it is definitely a problem, and it's not a soft bark. It is so loud that if you're walking with someone else, you cannot have a conversation as you're passing the house. So I think that's all I would like to say at this time.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else that wanted to offer any comments? All right, well, hearing none, what I'd like to do is take a motion to close the hearing, please, and then we will deliberate after that.
I move to close.
I just want to verify that nobody from the dog owner has shown up at all.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay,
I move to close the hearing.
second.
Like a roll call vote, please. Arnold, I.
Oscar Lilo, aye.
Brown eye.
Modell, aye.
Reed, aye.
All right, thank you. The hearing is closed. So I just want to very quickly summarize that in our packets, we have the formal letter of complaint from from Ronnie Green and Steve Moreau. And we have heard testimony from those two individuals, plus our two animal control officers and Jonathan DeCock. I want to, before we start deliberating, just remind us that the definition of a nuisance dog has three different categories. One is you declare them a nuisance dog if there is excessive barking or other disturbance, and it's a source of annoyance to a sick person residing in the vicinity, or by excessive barking causing damage or other interference, a reasonable person would find such behavior disruptive to one's quiet and peaceful enjoyment. Or number three, which I don't believe is relevant here, which is has threatened or attacked livestock, a domestic animal, or a person, but such threat or attack was not a grossly disproportionate reaction under all the circumstances. Although I may be wrong about saying that, given that the dog run at people, even though they stop at the fence or the invisible fence. But those are the three definitions. So I'm going to open it to select board members to comment and we'll start our deliberations. Yeah.
I just have I'm sorry.
What'd you say, Nathan?
May I speak?
Yes, please.
Okay, sorry, it's hard being remote, but I just thought all of a sudden I was interrupting. I just have a question for Jenny. In your examples, Jenny, it was always kind of like 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. or something like that. Do we have to limit it to those times, or were those purely examples? So this seems like a 24-hour issue.
Yeah, those are just some ideas for you.
Okay.
There's a lot more flexibility here than there is with a dangerous dog hearing.
Okay, that's good.
I don't think there's any question that this is a nuisance dog, either under 1 or 2. And having had a similar experience with a former neighbor, I know how frantic it can make you feel. And how disturbing it is. So why don't we get that out of the way first?
Yeah.
And then we can talk about the
Remedies.
the remedies.
Yeah. Does anyone here on the board disagree? All right, well then let's do a quick vote on that.
I'm sorry, what are we voting on? That it's that it is
Voting on.
I move to declare this dog, or these dogs, nuisance dogs,
As defined by.
as defined by Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 136A.
because of their barking.
Under items 1 and 2.
Yeah.
In the chapter.
Second.
Any more discussion on that? All right, I'd like a roll call vote, please. Arnold, I.
Oscar Lilo, aye.
Brown eye.
Modell, aye.
Reed, aye.
All right, so now we need to look at the remedies and as the hearing authority, we can determine what we want to order that the dog owners do in order to take remedial action. And some of the examples we've got here are restricting the time that the dog might be outdoors unattended, or when they're outside, and when they're outside that they must be on a leash. Proof of training within a certain number of days of receiving the order from us. And there are specifics about how they would verify that. A barking collar, which we've heard does not seem to have been effective so far. There could be something around how they have to maintain their home, keep the windows closed, keep the dog door closed at certain times. And there may be others that we come up with, but let's discuss how what remedies we want to order.
So I have a reasonable amount of experience with dog training.
Mhm.
And as people know who've been in these hearings, that dog training is owner training, first of all, right? And it does appear to me that this is an issue of neglect by the owners at least from what I've heard. And that's, as I said earlier, it's too bad for the dogs that the owners don't care enough to, take care of them. But any remedial training of dogs requires the cooperation of both the owners. The owners have to commit to the training. And the dog training process is a multi-month process. Simply ordering dog collars or whatever level of training they may have gone through is insufficient if there's not a commitment to stick to it. And it works. I know it works. And I know dog trainers personally who are very good at it. But, so I'm okay with providing remedies that are, humane and will solve the problem that don't mean containing the dog, which is another sort of form of abuse. But before we embark on that, I just want to make that comment that it requires commitment by the owner. The fact that the owners did not even care enough to show up today and don't answer the phone or come by or are there tells me that they're not committed to a solution. So I just want us to be kind of eyes wide open on that aspect. And I find it very, in some ways, I have to say, I find it more disturbing what I'm hearing today than a previous hearing we had where the owners clearly loved the dog, just couldn't control the dog.
Right.
They came, they argued very emotionally about taking care of the dog. We had a heated emotion about whether, we could confine the dog or not. I don't know how it's resolved itself, but they loved that dog. These people, I don't think they love their dogs. I don't know what they are. So it's very disappointing to me. And I'm kind of at odds of what really to prescribe that's practical. Thank you.
Steve,
I just wonder, excuse me, I just wonder if the animal control officers had any recommendations.
Jean, you
Yeah,
come on
Jean,
up if you, yeah.
I'll state again, I think limiting their access to the out of doors is really the only thing that's going to help here. I don't think bark collars are working. It may be an issue that they're not home during the day. There are dog walkers to take care of that problem. It clearly is an access issue. They go outside, become stimulated, become agitated, and the male has a very loud bark, in my opinion. So it's access, in my opinion.
So if we were to restrict the time that the dogs could be outdoors,
I don't think it should be that they should be restricted from going outdoors. I think they should be restricted from going outdoors without supervision,
Yeah,
unattended.
right.
So I think it's very easy. They may not go outdoors unattended. Period.
Right. And let them figure out
And
how to
let
do
them
that.
figure out how to do that.
I have another question for Jenny. Sorry to keep putting you on the spot, Jenny. So if we prescribe something like, can't be outside unattended, but what we prescribe does not solve the noise problem, then what do we, do we open the hearing again, or what do we do at that point?
You can have another hearing, you have another complaint, have another hearing. I mean, you would also have to find out, if they're actually following your orders. So if you issue an order and really what you're finding out is the dogs are going out unattended, then that's more of a compliance with your order issue.
Right.
You take some remedies under the bylaw that way. But
What are Jeannie, what are those remedies? Non-compliance remedies are what?
oh, we've dealt with that a little bit. It's really the same for your dangerous dog order. You can fine them. You can, there's remedies provided by statute, and
And one of them includes not not being able to keep a dog in the state, have the ability to license a dog in the state for 5 years. Is that right?
There is a step, yeah, that could involve that, yes. But as we've learned, the remedies they're not perfect, but they do exist. It involves ticketing and then going to court and hopefully having somebody show up to court.
I have another question.
Yeah.
So could we
I
say
know.
something like, the dog cannot be allowed outside unattended until they can demonstrate that the noise nuisance has been addressed?
Yeah, I mean, what you can order is very flexible under this part of the statute. So I don't know, that enforcing that might be more difficult,
Uh-huh.
but you could certainly order it.
Kate,
What
yeah.
is the liability of the property owner? Since this is a rented property.
That's good. I mean, they're not really, the liability falls on the owner of the dog.
We can't, we
Yeah,
can't.
I
court
mean,
them.
that would be an interesting question if somebody gets injured on their property from the dogs, that would probably be something that, they'd look for the property insurance to cover. But that's not really what we're talking about here.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, yeah. I was just thinking that, if they were notified that their tenant has, no, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the statute really applies to owners and keepers of dogs, and I don't think that the landlord in this situation would meet the criteria of keeper of a dog.
Mhm. So what I'm hearing is we could issue a determination that the dogs would not be allowed to be outdoors unattended. And then it would be up to some entity that we would, some individuals to go monitor that. Right? I mean, because
I mean, if they're
we
gonna
don't really want to
complain,
put it on the neighbors to have to do that. So,
but if it results in barking, I presume, you'll complain again and ACO will come out, and if the people are away, as it seems for many hours, it should be relatively easy to establish dogs loose and unattended, right? That should be pretty
Right.
simple. I don't think we need to put it on anybody else than ACO.
well, I just meant, I don't know, Jenny, what's your feeling about that? If that's what our order was, that we just leave it to the neighbors to report if it's being complied with?
I mean, you're right that that's unfair, but also it's most likely they're going to be the ones that notice that it's not going to be complied with,
Yeah.
they're there all the time.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess what I worry about is like, if we're gonna say that the dogs cannot be left outside unattended, if that's our order, I think it should also be, and whatever other methods are, so in addition to that, what other methods they may use in order to reduce the noise. Because, I mean, I've been by how, there are times when I'm sure that people walk by my house and it sounds like, my dog's just going to rip them apart. So I'm not sure that it's necessarily just the dogs in the yard that's a problem. It's the barking that's a problem.
Right.
And so, I think certainly a really good way, from what Jean is saying, is don't let them outside, but also, and any other means they can find to ensure that the dog is not a barking nuisance. Just to make sure that we're not restricting it. If they do that and then everybody's still complaining because the dog is barking inside, we still have the problem.
Yeah. And we could also, as David, you're saying, we could ask that they,
We could certainly
participate in
recommend
dog-
that, yeah. I
Dog
mean,
training. And what the statute describes is very specific, certified trainers
right, but they
that have to
exist,
be
but-
used.
Yeah, if we do that, I would say 90 days, give them 90 days, because they're not gonna train them overnight.
Right.
Even 90 is short, but
But at least they,
the officer has it.
Yes, Matt.
I have a fear that I think both David and Nathan touched on. with owners that are acting in the way they are, where they don't seem to care about it, their solution is going to be, potentially, would be just to lock them in the house, and that's not fair to the animals. So I think unfortunately, you need to consider what's fair to them also. So I think it was Nathan that mentioned the open-ended, confine them to the house without somebody supervising until they can demonstrate that they've trained. So I think the twofer approach, the two-pronged
Yeah.
approach, or some other way that they can keep the barking under control,
Right.
you know, surgically removing their vocal cords. I don't think that's a good way of doing it. But training or, you know, demonstrate that they've got some other way to stop the barking,
Yeah.
and then they can go back to the free rein. I mean, you know, if I was a dog, I would love to be coming in and out all the time at will, right? That seems like the best life, but when you're bothering people to the point where they're bothering them, it's just,
You can't allow that as the owner, right?
Well, they're not, I mean, I don't want to be a dog psychologist, but it would seem to me they're not getting enough stimulation, because even though they can go out, they can't interact with whatever's out there, and they're not getting, I presume, human interaction, so they don't get the adjustment, basically, that dogs are social animals. They need interaction with humans. That's been, 100,000 years of that. So they're not getting it, which is why they express it through barking. And that's why training takes a long time. It's not,
So,
I agree with Matt that, I do worry about it being kind of like a never ending thing if we put this on there. So, having them to some way of demonstrating that they now have the dog in a place where it's not going to bark.
Right.
With the dogs, I think if they can come back and demonstrate that, and the neighbors can, we can put them on notice, and we can say, okay, we're going to let it out for a little while, and you let us know how it goes. And if it goes bad again, then they're back where they were. But at least they have an opportunity to not keep the dog locked up all the time.
right. I'm supportive of that. How are you feeling, Luke?
Yeah, no, I am. I mean, I have a shepherd, right? And you put the zap collar on and hit that thing, no, because it's not getting through the hair. I mean, a lot of it could just be that they're not actually attentively putting the collar on and everything. So, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely supportive of, until they can show. But yeah, I mean, we definitely have to be cognizant of what the neighbors are going through.
Right.
And, and then the other piece too, is Jonathan brought up with the school, maybe we should, confine them for a certain period, just so.
Yeah.
At certain hours of the day, you mean when the bus
Yeah,
stop,
just- yeah,
when
just
kids
so,
are
like,
getting off
kids
and on the
aren't-
bus?
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, ultimately, if they're not barking, is it gonna be an issue, right? So,
Right.
so like, that's the thing. I think you solve the
Right.
barking, you probably solve some of the other issues. But yeah, no, I agree with, I think close them in until you can show that they can effectively be outside,
Without
and
barking.
not barking, right? Because I mean, were they, sorry, not to jump back to a question, well, you said the owner was out with the dog a couple of weeks ago or last week or something. Was the dog bark? Like, is the,
No, the dog just sat
no,
there.
right, so the dog,
It's
so,
on my driveway, the dog just sat there, looked at
Yeah.
us, didn't move, didn't bark, didn't do
Yeah.
anything.
yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
so good situation, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
right, yeah, so,
Right.
so yeah, I mean, hopefully they'll want to comply, right? But yeah, I mean, I think it's the free rein piece, without the supervision is the
Right.
problem.
So what I'm hearing is that we have an order that stipulates the dogs must be, may not go outside unattended for a period of time, and we can determine what that is, or we can say until they have demonstrated, the owners have demonstrated that the dogs are not going to bark when they go outside. Is that a fair statement, Nathan?
Yeah, I think, I would say not for a period of time. I mean, that period of time.
Leave that out and just say
Until they
until
can
such
demonstrate.
time they have
Right.
demonstrated that the dogs are not barking when they go
Right,
outside.
and I would agree with Luke that, during the school year, during this hour and this hour, they cannot be allowed out. Well, I mean, I don't know, because I mean, if they're not out if they're not allowed, that's not English. If they are not allowed outside unattended, the chances are they're not going to be barking at the kids as they walk by, right?
Right.
Well, they may bark from the inside, but.
Well,
That's an experiment, right? Whether it's, I think it's an experiment you haven't done because the dogs probably mostly run out to bark, but.
Right. I think it's kind of like I think that the order is that they are not, their dogs are not allowed outside unattended, and they must take whatever actions necessary to ensure the dogs are not barking, are not a barking nuisance inside or outside until they can demonstrate that the issue has been resolved.
Should we, oh, sorry, should we put in there, what do we consider resolved? Is it the animal control officer's satisfaction, our satisfaction?
Neighbors.
Neighbors' satisfaction.
We should have,
Yeah.
like, in a sense,
I
maybe.
think it would have to be, animal control
Yeah,
officer's
yeah.
satisfaction, and the neighbors would give their input. I don't think we want the neighbors
Right, to be on
making
the
a call on,
line.
No.
yeah, that puts them in
No,
a
exactly,
really
but
awkward spot.
Yeah, no, it's more so, should we leave it up to the professionals or us? Yeah.
So I think if that seems reasonable to me, and just want to check in with you gentlemen, as the animal control officers, are you comfortable with that being in the order? That the determination about whether or not the owners have complied with the order to do whatever is needed to stop the dogs barking, that you will verify that. You will follow up and monitor that.
Well, we'll end up monitoring it one way or the
Yeah.
other.
So I think that's completely appropriate, because we're gonna end up with.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
This is a kind and gentle first step, but
Yeah.
hopefully we don't have to come back
Right,
again, but be prepared if we do.
right.
I guess my question also is, do we want to say barking for greater than, let's say, 10 minutes or 15 minutes? No, you
If
just
they've gone
stop.
away from time,
Yeah.
because it's subjective,
Okay, all right.
it's continuous,
Well,
Right.
yeah, all right,
nuisance vocabulary is.
all right. Well, and I assume we have reasonable neighbors here that
Right.
if it's short bursts, that they'll be able to tolerate that better than that nonstop. Yeah.
First, it's not a nuisance.
Right, exactly.
Longer
If
duration
that's sustained,
Yeah, yeah,
determined to be a nuisance.
right.
yes.
Okay.
All right. So do we, Jenny, we should vote on the specific language, am I correct?
Could we get a draft?
Could we also, though, just add into what I just said, that, just making sure that when we're saying they must not be allowed outside unattended, that we're putting something in there that they, I can't imagine they wouldn't, but, that doesn't mean they can just lock them inside all day, right? I mean, they need to be treated humanely, so they, so something, and this is going to be awkward wording, but, maybe Jenny or whoever writes this up can make it proper English, but, that they are not allowed outside unattended. I don't know how you put it in there, but, that the dogs are treated humanely while inside and not allowed outside unattended. Like the whole nuisance thing where it was an aggressive dog, everything we said was, about humanely, tying them up or humanely putting them in a pen. This is, they're humanely keeping them inside all day, and not allowing them out unattended, and making sure that while they're inside, they aren't a noise nuisance. Was that?
Or it could be that the order is the dogs may not be outdoors unattended until such time as they're able to demonstrate that they are not barking. They are not continuing to exhibit nuisance barking, and that the dogs will be treated in a humane way, period. I mean,
Not humanely treated, they can be seized.
Yep.
That would solve the problem also.
say it again, Matt?
If they're not humanely treated, the dogs can be seized. and
Yes.
That would solve the problem also.
Yeah. So what if we did it that way, Nathan? It's 2 sentences in the order.
I think that makes sense as long as we also keep the part about, I worry about in in the summertime when it's hot and the windows are open, it's not going to help at all if they're barking out the window. So as long as we keep the inside barking piece in there as well.
Okay.
But I've clearly demonstrated I'm not the proper person to make the motion.
Well, hey, you're trying though. You're trying.
Yes.
Credit for that. So what if we said something like, we order that the dogs referenced in this complaint are restricted to being outdoors. They are restricted from being outdoors unattended until such time as they're able to demonstrate, the owners are able to demonstrate that the nuisance barking is resolved, both indoors and outdoors.
Well, I would say if we're going to start with what you just said, and here I'm jumping in again, but I totally love what you said at the beginning part, that that they're ordered to keep the dogs inside and or they're ordered not to let the dogs outside unattended. And they must, so just making sure it's an and, they must make sure that, that the dogs are treated humanely and that there is no nuisance barking while the dogs are inside until such point as they can demonstrate that the dogs have been through a training or whatever, so that they are no longer a nuisance barking dog.
I like that. Second.
Jenny has something. She didn't like it.
No, I like to find,
Jenny,
I was gonna
yeah.
make a suggestion that perhaps you just start off the order that says, until such time that the dog's owners can demonstrate to the animal control officer's satisfaction that the excessive barking problem has been addressed, and then just list your orders.
Okay,
That sounds great.
that sounds great. And the orders are that the dogs may not be outdoors unattended, that the dogs are to be treated humanely, that the owners, through whatever other remedies they choose, will demonstrate that the nuisance barking behavior has been resolved both indoors and outdoors. Does that work?
So they may not be allowed outside unattended. They must control the barking, whether the dog is inside or outside, and they must continuously keep the dog, treat the dogs humanely.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so the dogs shall not be permitted to go outside unattended. That's one. The dog's owners shall take all necessary remedial action to prevent excessive barking while the dogs are both inside and outside their home. And 3, the dog shall be treated humanely at all times.
Yes.
I think you're.
All right.
Sounds good to me.
Did you,
I was going to ask.
why don't you, sorry, you need to come up to the mic. So, yeah.
The question I was going to ask was about training, if you wanted to include anything about training, but I think Jenny just did. So.
She said all possible remedial action. Yeah.
So I think that
And we could
covers
say
my,
including training.
that covers my question.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I think we have a motion, and I'd like to hear a
I
second.
seconded it already.
All right.
Nathan made the motion, right?
Yeah, in a roundabout way. Yep.
I
Yeah,
seconded it.
with support from town council.
And I
Yes.
accepted all the friendly amendments. so-
Okay, good. All right. Any more discussion by the
So
board?
just
Yeah.
once it's passed, what are the mechanics of it?
Well, the town council writes up the order and then it is signed by me and then it's delivered to the dog owners.
In person, like where you would deliver?
I think what we did
summons or
last time was we did a signed receipt return. If I
Yeah.
remember correctly, Jenny?
Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we usually send it both ways.
okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay?
Yep.
All right. So let's have a roll call vote, please. Arnold, I.
Oscar Lilo, aye.
Brown eye.
L.I.
Reed, aye.
All right, thank you all, and
Thank you for coming.
thank you, Ronnie and Steve, and
Wish you the
we
best.
hope we don't see you again under these same circumstances, although we'd be happy to see you in the neighborhood. Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Matt and Jean, for
Jonathan,
being here,
thank you.
and Jenny, thanks.
Bye.
And Jonathan, comments. All right, we are moving on, and yes, feel free to depart, although there's a fascinating conversation.
Riveting conversation ahead. Don't run off. We're Jack. It's like everybody's leaving.
All right. So we are getting, and Jack, I appreciate your patience. So we are now at the part of the agenda to discuss the Carlisle Master Plan. And this is,
Bring a chair, Jack.
oh yeah, you
Come-
can.
no, no, come over here and bring a chair.
Yeah, you can feel free to bring up a chair. So, you know, as we all know, the Carlisle Master Plan Steering Committee has completed, gosh, almost 5 years of work, I guess, and has a final draft that we have been provided with some time ago. And this is our formal opportunity as a board to provide feedback and input to Jack Trost as the chair of the committee, which is then going to be included with other comments that other groups and individuals have provided during this period. And before a final version goes to the planning board for approval. So Jack, thank you very much for joining us. And I did send out something just to the board members and Jack that I don't know if this is helpful or not, but given how long the report is, although I'm sure each of us has read it page by page entirely, I thought it might be helpful just to start with the sort of key focus areas that are outlined right at the beginning of the report. And so they concern coordinated land use planning and policy development, coordinated fiscal planning and municipal human resources. The fourth one is coordinated facilities planning. And the fourth one is planning for environmental sustainability. And an additional section is about the staff and volunteer capacity that would provide some of the tools to conduct or resources to conduct this long-range coordinated effort. So if that makes sense to everybody on the board, I thought we could start that way. Since Kate and I have been involved on the Master Plan Steering Committee for quite a while now,
Nothing.
we will, you know, sit back and relax to let Luke and Nathan and David offer their input. But Jack, I wondered if you had anything you wanted to say by way of introduction, just briefly.
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here in person and see all of you. And Kate and Barney, we've been talking over the screen for a long time, so it's nice to be here. It's also a tough act to follow, that one, so I'm sure you guys will be kind to me here. But I guess the only thing I would just pick up on what you said, Barney, is this has been a long process, but I thought a quick process sequence would be in order, and then happy to talk about specifics in the plan. So we posted the draft right after I came, or not came, right after we presented over Zoom to the joint meeting of the planning board and the select board. And that was at the end of February. So right after that, the document went up on the website. And thanks to Mary Lynn, I should say, who's done a lot of our behind the scenes, keeping the website and other things going. And that began the public comment period, which ran for approximately a month. We closed that out on March 31st. Again, there was good coverage in terms of outreach to everybody that we had on social media and email, Facebook. Again, Mary Lynn did a great job of kind of coordinating that effort. And then there was, and I'm sure you saw it, a coverage in the mosquito. And so we have received, I think on the one hand, it seems like not a lot of comments because it's like 20 some odd commenters, 26, 27 commenters, but there's far more comments because not everybody just offered a single comment. There is some repetition. And the Master Plan Steering Committee met 2 weeks ago and will meet again this week. And we are basically addressing all the comments. And there'll be sort of a two-type resolution to every comment. Either we'll say that we've appreciate the comment and offer, again, the justification for why the plan offers the information that it's offering and or the recommendation we're proposing, or we will say, we agree, we'd like to amend either the text of the report or the recommendation in the following manner. And then that document, which will be the final plan, at that point will be before the planning board for action, and that date is May 9th. I'm sorry, yes, is when they are scheduled. So I will be at the planning board once before then, just to give them a status report and share with them some of the work of the committee, and then we'll have a final review with them on May 9th. So that's just to give you the context from the last time we spoke and where we are today.
So I think you guys have done a, amazing job. It's been a long journey. I would say that would conclude phase 2 of 3 or possibly 4 phases. So phase 1, all the data gathering, kitchen table, surveys, blah, 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 blah. Phase 2 started with you guys working the report, and then, as you said, vetting it, getting comments, editing, tweaking, presenting, finalizing. So that would complete that. I'm particularly, and it's been fine, observing it and not being involved. I'm happy that people who have the energy and time to devote to it are doing that. So I'm very pleased at that. I'm particularly interested in what I assume it will be phase 3, which is actual implementation.
Correct.
So from my standpoint, I have no comments on phases 1 and 2 at this point. I'm more interested in phase 3. I don't know if that's a tonight discussion or some future discussion.
Well, it certainly can. I think if you recall, one of the recommendations that we made at that meeting, and I know that, Madeline, on behalf of the planning board, was particularly keen on this, is, that they think it's a joint responsibility, but primarily in the hands of the select board to, essentially appoint an implementation committee. And we recommend that. And that would be how we move from the guidance to the implementation.
But for tonight, maybe, so that's definitely a good conversation to have. We could have it tonight unless others on the board have more, have comments or questions about the specific recommendations. And so Nathan and Luke, I'm really looking toward the two of you. If there was anything in particular you wanted to offer or ask about in terms of the content.
Well, I'll go first, Luke. I mean, I think, I think, first of all, I think moving on to deciding on step 3 is probably getting a little ahead of ourselves. But that's just my own opinion. I do think that this is really, really great. I did read through it all. I do have a question, and, I know that, Kate and Barney, you said that you were going to sit back and let Luke and Dave and I ask all the questions, but I have a question for you, because it's not often that we actually have two select board members that are on a committee and as active as you both have been in helping this through. So my question for you is like, what do you both think are like the two greatest strengths in this proposal, in this document, in this plan?
There you go.
Take that.
Well,
You guys are gonna
Yeah,
rely.
yeah, really.
got you.
Okay, Nathan.
Now I'm
all right.
interviewing you.
Yeah, well, you know, actually, I can give my answer to that because in a way it's spelled out right at the beginning in the summary, which I completely agree with, which is the development of this. You know, we've said all along, actually, not just in the master plan steering committee, but I know we've said this here in the board and other groups have, that, you know, you have the plan, and unless it gets implemented, you know, it's meaningless. And one of the things that comes through this so clearly is the need for coordinated planning. And so if you look at I think the key things that are here that need to be implemented are around coordinated land use planning and policy development. You know, we've talked about that over the last couple of years, you know, in sort of fits and starts outside of the master plan in terms of, you know, how that works in town hall and the different boards that are involved in that. Similarly with the fiscal planning and human resources, municipal resources, again, you know, we've talked about that off and on as a board. This plan, you know, just says it really clearly right up front, the need for coordinated planning and coordinated use, you know, of our human resources. Similarly, the coordinated facilities planning, which is already underway, but this just adds more emphasis and detail to that. And then finally, the planning for environmental sustainability, which I do think is a relatively new piece for the select board to think about. And this is giving us some specifics on that we have not, I think, touched on as a board so much as we have the other three areas. So I know it's maybe a simple answer, but to me, that is the most clear thing and most important thing that comes out of this plan.
Okay,
I would agree with that. And the other thing that comes out is of this plan are recommendations that in order to achieve all this, we're going to have to look very carefully at our staff and at the functions that our staff are fulfilling, and the functions that maybe are not being fulfilled right now that need to get fulfilled down the line.
And just on that point, Kate, I would add that, you know, there were some comments about adding staff and concerns about what that meant. And the master plan steering committee took that up, and we are very much in support of the idea of focusing on functions, not on people. And that's the issue. And so those recommendations where it refers to, you know, a person is now referred to as these functions as critical. So I'm glad you brought that up.
I think that's a good point.
So,
I've
you
said
know,
my piece.
All right, here you go, Luke.
Well, I don't really have much, I don't know how the hell we're gonna pay for it, but no, I mean, I think ultimately a lot of these recommendations are great, and I think, I think what Carlisle has to be better at is as you said, the coordinated planning. I mean, we have people offering us money to do things and we screw it up, right?
Yeah.
We don't have a plan to start with.
But it's also, but it's also competing interests, right?
Yes.
So I mean,
Yes.
for this to work,
Yes.
right? For this to truly, people have to get out of their own little agenda and focus on Carlisle as a whole, and that's gonna be the trick, Jack. I mean,
That's
good
exactly
luck.
right.
Because because you just see this, you know, I mean, you know, a potential pickleball / community center / whatever, it was a perfect example. I mean, we had somebody offering us money, right? And certain people wouldn't even have conversations, right, about what we could do there, right? And And it was dead in the water before it even started to really gain any traction. And I think that's where, when people have certain agendas, I think that's going to be the hardest thing to overcome, right? And I think what we've seen just in, my umpteen years now doing town stuff is, when we had a tag group, right? So we had somebody from housing, we had somebody from planning, we had somebody from conscom, and everybody was forced in a room, right? One or two people from each interest, and you had to come to a resolution. That's when stuff actually happened. That's when stuff moved forward. I think that's going to be the hardest trick with all of this is, getting those silos to work together. And, I think the function piece is huge, right? Because again, it's siloed, right? People think this is my job and I'm the only one that can do this. And that's not true. Ask for help, get help, branch out, and work together on something to get a solution. It's frustrating when, the talent is there and the effort is there, but everybody's just spinning their wheels, right? So, in addition to the financial piece, which is going to be another trick, but I think a lot of these, it's just, it's a tremendous amount of work, a tremendous amount of data collected, pulling it all together. I'll be honest with you, I didn't think you were going to with the group that was coming in. I was very skeptical, but you guys did. And yeah, no, I think it'd be a shame now to not, get that last piece, together to move this thing forward.
Right,
At least some of them. The other piece too is, there are so many different recommendations, right? You gotta pick and choose, right? Like obviously, which ones, should we tackle first and which
Well,
ones?
that's why we tried to highlight that in the executive summary, because there was a concern that there were an enormous number of recommendations, as there normally are in a master plan, because it is designed to look out over 25 to 30 years. But we did try to use the executive summary to highlight those that we thought, for example, looking at the facilities in a townwide context. I can't underscore how important that is. The comment about that you just made, Luke, about an opportunity for a particular investment in a facility is not going to be easily evaluated if there isn't a bigger perspective on what those other needs are, whether they're public safety, community, and you're absolutely right. This has been sort of threading a needle because the interests of people who want more open space, they're very conscious of that. There are people who want community facilities and they're very strong in their views about that. There's people who want to see changes in the housing. And we really tried to look at all these different interests because that's the whole nature of the plan and offer those opinions. And, I think it's about that challenge of, as you said, taking these different interests, competing interests. And if you get people in a room, you find out maybe they're not really competing.
Well, exactly. No, exactly.
Maybe they are things that we have a common goal.
Right, but if you got to get them in that room.
Right.
Right.
All right, so I think,
Right.
I agree with everything that has been said just now. It points back to the challenge of implementation. So I just make a couple comments. I know we're not moving there yet, but first of all, Carlisle is one reason I personally love town government is because it's a scaled down version of everything that goes on in the country. We have a mini version, right? So people do have their own interests and the interests sometimes compete. But when we get together, democracies are messy and getting consensus is a messy process. It's a lot easier to, order things to be, but it creates a better work product. So this is the work of democracy, right? Is to reach out to all the parties. To draw two parallels, one back to the pickleball. I do not think at the end of the day, it was a failure for competing interests. I think it was a misstep politically in the way it was rolled out. To engage those people early before it got parked was what was missing. And certain constituents were very anti, but they weren't, to your point, there was not enough outreach early. And so I think the outreach that you did do and the outreach that must continue in what everybody's saying, and when we get to implementation, to pick and choose, of course, prioritize, and then very careful outreach to all the groups to get their, another version of what you got, like comments, and maybe you have to tweak something in your approach. The other parallel I want to draw is the governance committee, where the origin of it was a cross-functional committee that actually had consensus among competing interests. Again, in my opinion, a misstep to create a totally independent committee that did not liaise with those stakeholders until they had a finished product. And then, oh, they woke up and people didn't like the finished product. Well, guess what? You didn't talk to those people about what you were thinking of. So it gets back to the same thing. When we do form implementation, it must be cross-functional. And then, even though it's cross-functional, that's not enough. You gotta then, when they decide, they gotta go outreach and they have to make sure that they retail those solutions. What's great about here is we are small enough that retail politics works. You know, we have competing interests and we got this and that. We got people, you know, we don't agree and are illogical perhaps in their disagreement, but we're small enough. If you put the effort in, you can do it. So I absolutely agree. And I think that's a really good guidepost for the way we need to progress, you know, when we get to that phase.
And I think the recommendation does say cross-functional implementation. So we completely in support of that and encourage that, because I don't think it's going to work, obviously, if the implementation committee just goes off and does things without coordinating with the FinCom and the you know, the select board, the planning board, for example.
Right.
But, you know, it's interesting historically, as you were speaking, Luke, because the town obviously is small. It's built its government sort of from the bottom up historical, you know, but the world has gotten more complicated and the town has gotten, even though it doesn't seem like it, a lot bigger. And it has a lot of other challenges, if you will, that the notion that people working for a board or a committee only at their direction is really not a constructive, in my opinion, constructive way to go about it, right? Because it just keeps the silo independent.
Right.
So.
Nathan, did you want to offer a comment?
Yeah, I just two things, and I'm responding to recent comments and comments that were made quite a while ago. You know, one is just, you know, kind of about the prioritization that Luke was saying is, you know, I think, you know, these are all great projects. I think some of them we will never do. But I hope that many of them we do. I think it's going to really come down to what is the priority, what is the financing, and what makes sense, particularly as time goes on. Our needs will change, and some of these won't be, potentially they won't be as important. In talking about like an implementation thing, one thing that I really want us to think about is how we can make this kind of ingrained in everything we do. And so, you know, I worry that if we select an quote unquote implementation committee, what we're doing is we're creating a conflict, right? We're going to have one committee that's saying, these are the things we need to do, and other committees are going to be trying to do the day-to-day thing. And so, I don't think we need to get into it right now, but, what I'd like us to talk about, and why I don't want to get into it right now, is how do we actually instill this? How do we build this in so that as committees and departments are doing things, they are thinking about this on an ongoing basis? And maybe we have a committee that's kind of an advisory committee that the departments and other committees and boards can go to and say, we're thinking about this. What do you think about this? Rather than, say, hey, you drive this master planning committee implementation. I just see a conflict between kind of the day-to-day work of the board and this committee, unless we figure out how this is ingrained in the DNA of everybody. And we have these reference people we can go to make sure that we're on track.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the, I totally agree with you, Nathan, and I think some of this will be coming through our goal setting procedure every year. And one of our goals this year seems to me was that we were going to try to have like a breakfast or something with the, chairs and, it's like informational thing. Maybe, and of course, COVID, we still, haven't gotten that up, but I think what's something about what you were talking about would be answered by getting those kind of more social, even information sharing.
Right, and get all the boards to do that, right? Because not all the boards are under our purview, but everybody needs
No,
to.
it would have to be
kind
all
of
the boards,
embrace
and it
this,
has
yeah.
to be run basically, I'd say by us. But, so I think, but as I said, also then, I think also that goal setting, that, we, either the select board or the select board in conjunction with the implementation board would say, all right, the goal this year is, or our goals, these are the goals for the town. And you Board of Health and you Conscom and you, even DPW, these are the things that you need to keep in your mind first and foremost when you make decisions.
Right.
But to synthesize, I agree also with what was said, but I mean, Nathan's making a really good point, which is it's not for another committee to layer on another, mandate.
Right.
But the flip side, which also is not addressed by us, putting goals on. We should definitely use this as a roadmap for our goal setting. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the committees should also take their respective parts, the current committees. But I could see it because everybody, one reason that they're silos is not that people want to be siloed. It's just that you have a pile of stuff you have to do. Like your job, if you're Board of Health, and they're very clear, like, we got to do these things. We got to make sure the water supply is safe, and we got to do this. And yeah, some personalities are at play, and maybe they get sort of a little prickly sometimes when they perceive interference. But basically, they're saying, I got so much to do, like, I just got to do my job. Please let me do my job. And so when we add in some layer, which is across the functions, we have to, again, back to implementation, we have to acknowledge that we are adding a load. Now, we should not, and I agree with Nathan, we should not lord it, from on high, thou shalt, right? We have to work from within, but to ask them, the risk of asking them to do it is just adding a task. I do think there's a role, and this is a great discussion because we really should think carefully about how it's structured. But I think there's a role of a group just like their side, whose mission is take these things, think about them, work with the committees to figure out what's practical and help them with those pieces. You got to weave it that way because as soon as we just give them more to do, there's just more to do, and so it's a careful thing. We should definitely, after it sounds like there's a couple months now to, wait for planning and stuff, but we should take the time and talk to these guys in planning board and really think through, like, what's the effective way we can actually, mine this treasure trove of input.
Right, and I think the implementation is intended to be one that's thoughtful and not, you become yet another board and committee that runs, on your own track. And it's interesting, the consultant did a information session with the staff as well. And the staff was equally strong in their view that there wasn't enough cross-pollination.
Staff of the town hall.
The staff of the town hall. So, it's they're feeling it. The boards and committees, to the extent that they come up against a conflict with another board and committee, feels it. And so I think, to your point, David, it makes a lot of sense to make sure that this implementation is well thought out and well coordinated more than anything. And with things like the planning board filling a new position, would that be filled in a different way because of these function needs? The new town administrator, other things. These are the things to be considered as the town looks down the road, right? And some of these things are relatively short. I mean, some of them are very expensive, as you said, Luke. They will involve, buying land, for example. It's not going to come cheap in Carlisle, even if the town buys it from a friendly seller. But, doing a facility study is not a huge expense, to do one and look at all the facilities and the facility needs. There was only one done on looking at a few facilities and really looking, David, at the deferred maintenance issue. Okay. It was never done with respect to what do we need space for? Who needs space? Is there a community space need? Is there a, council on aging component? And that's all pretty well laid out in the report. The other thing is something like doing, and I know this controversy cropped up recently with the governance committee on the FinCom, but looking out at the expenses for the town, and obviously the budget is its own function, and it should be, but looking out 5 budgets ahead is not unreasonable function to undertake for the
Right.
town. I think
Right.
it's just common sense. And it doesn't require huge, it does require some readjustment because somebody's got to take something off their plate to take on an additional task. So we
Yeah.
agree with that.
And I just want to follow up on the sort of discussion about, getting board chairs and boards, interacting, cooperating more. I think we as a select board can take a really strong role in making that happen. We've kind of had some fits and starts over the years in terms of
Trying
having
more
people
now, I think.
come to the select board to talk about what their board's goals are, but we have not, we can play a big role in making that cross board, interaction socially, and then both, and also in, kind of function, what they're trying to do. And at the same time, I think our town staff need to be going through the same kind of cross communication, coming together more regularly, cross training, and that's really where our current town administrator and then eventually our new town administrator are going to play a huge role in trying to make that happen in a way that also breaks down those silos. So I think there are those 2 pieces of it, and we can really, we really should play a big role on the volunteer side.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Barney, and that's I think part of what I was saying. I think that it's about goals. It's about understanding, where everybody is going and ensuring. And I think that rests on the Board of Selectmen. And so I worry about setting up an implementation committee, and say, hey, you go make sure that this happens. I think that's just going to create conflict. I look at it as more as, we need to be driving what the goals are. We need to be saying, you need to be thinking about the master plan. We're interested in your thoughts on your priorities and how that would impact. And you have to work with the other boards as you're building your plans. And we have this group that you can work with to work through those priorities. And that's this advisory master planning committee.
Luke, do you
Yeah.
want to say something?
Yeah, no, I was just actually just gonna add to what you were saying with the staff coming together and, town hall functioned better when there were the monthly, well, it started out as every other week, right? Or even just monthly staff meetings, right? Where everybody got together, everybody kind of had their say in whatever was going on, right? And you felt a sense of, community, if you will, right?
Mhm.
But also too, it gets you learning what's going on with other people. And I mean, and it was clear kind of, as it happens, right? 4 weeks through, oh, well, we can't meet this, so we'll push it off 2 weeks, and then that doesn't happen. But, 2 weeks turns into 4, turns into 6, turns into 8, turns into 0, right? So I think that's the piece too, where either, Steve is the interim or Steve is the permanent.
We only wish.
Not gonna happen.
No, but, and I think that's something that's gotta be driven by the board as well, right? Just forcing those things to happen,
Yeah,
because
right.
as soon as they start to fall off the
Yeah.
table, everybody kind of goes back to doing what they do best, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you lose that, and it's unfortunate because
Well, we're gonna start them again.
Good.
And
COVID certainly has not helped.
Right,
No, right,
right.
yeah, when
Any.
folks are remote and everything, I mean.
Yeah.
Also found that food is a great motivator.
Oh, yeah,
Coffee and-
yes.
Well, and to David's point, all these boards have their functions that they're mandated to oversee, whether it's
Right.
hearings on, permits or planning board approval or conscom wetlands hearings. And so that business has to continue on in a way.
Right.
And you have to figure out, okay, so beyond that, how do we make this happen?
I think we're saying this, I mean, whether we call it advisory committee or implementation committee, maybe advisory is better, but I think it's the same, we're talking about the same thing, which is help those committees or those boards and the employees who are tasked with really actually the implementation, help them, guide them, prioritize both in time and importance, the
Right.
many recommendations that are here, right? And,
I think too, the Board of Selectmen too could take a few of the recommendations,
yeah.
the low hanging fruit, if you will, and say, these are the things that we think we ought to move on, whether it's a facility study or it's a long-term planning function or whatever it is, and, pick out of the priority recommendations, pick a few and run with them as well. I mean, that's another option. I mean, I think Kate, you and Barney have commented that there's a number of recommendations in the report that are already part of the select board's goals. Now, we were careful, there was a comment, because we're a bottoms up, report.
Right.
And the comment in the comment section was, why is the select board goal mentioned? Well, no, the reason the select board goal was mentioned is because it was consistent with the goal that came from the public process. So.
Oh, you mean we got one right?
At least.
Yeah.
No, so there's.
Right, I know, I agree with that, but even low hanging fruit is not low hanging, really. I mean, we know every little thing takes so much work, right? And we can't also spread ourselves too thin. I mean, we spend, and it's important, right? But let's be clear-eyed about the way that town of Carlisle runs with a town administrator, not a town manager, and a whole bunch. We're having dialogues about that, right? But we're the nighttime government. We just spent an hour on a barking dog.
Yeah.
2 barking dogs on one street. We have to do it. But there's an hour plus probably another hour prep or whatever. Resources are finite. So even if we were to take what looks like a simple thing, it's not simple. These 2 here spent, I don't know, unbelievable hours working on the human resource manual. It needed doing. But it really could have used probably, a professional to help them, right? So I think, yes, we need to, I mean, it's a good probably thought exercise for us to take these curated ones like that Barney has here. And we might this summer, really spend some time in our sort of general planning, thinking about prioritizing and how we might do that. And then maybe we defer actually how to do it to once we've figured out the list. So that's true. I agree with that. But I don't want us to be unrealistic about us taking a leadership, leadership. We need help. And one of the things in here is we need more volunteers. We really got to get some other people involved, and they certainly can be people who have served in master planning to help just do stuff. We all have the greatest intentions, but I know my own energy level and I know all the things I got going on. So
No, we appreciate the challenges that, and I got to bear witness to the to the trial, so
Yeah.
for the hearing.
not a trial.
I can appreciate that you're not just sitting back looking for these things to weigh in on. So
So I think we've probably come to the end of our discussion for tonight, but we definitely, I think we've all been saying, and we want to continue the discussion about whatever you want to call it, the implementation or what, how we move the plan forward. So we'll look forward to seeing the final version and, and attending. I think there's a lot of us will attend the planning board meeting, I'm sure, where this is going to be finalized. So I know it's kind of, I'm speaking to myself too, but I will, Jack, I want to just express our great appreciation to you and the rest of the committee.
Tremendous
And
work that you put into it,
And
Jack.
all the other people that over the last 4 or 5 years have worked on it. I mean, if you look at that report and all the list of names, those people,
Yeah.
every single person there has made a contribution. And then you have all the countless people that filled out surveys and came to meetings and did kitchen conversations, et cetera. So it really has been a tremendous process.
No, I appreciate that. And I couldn't have done what I've done in the last, 18 months if it hadn't been set up. And I think Madeline did a great job at the joint meeting before we got going to say, this is how it's been happening. So I appreciate that. I certainly appreciate both your, Barney and Kate, your involvement in particular, but also the support of the board, the select board in general, and look forward to continuing to work with you on this and take it to the next step, as you said,
Yes.
David, to the next phase.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, good.
great. All right.
Yeah, thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Okay.
Right. All righty.
Ay, ay, ay.
Well, aren't we glad we did some of the work earlier, right? Because we've already done, so we need to do the discussion about town meeting.
Oh.
But I don't think this will take too long, and we are actually close to on time. We're only 11 minutes over. So I want to take the number 3 and number 4 under the town meeting preparations first, because they're the ones that I think that require a little more discussion, which is the vote on whether or not to reduce the quorum for town meeting, which is somewhat related to the discussion about the potential for changing the venue. I don't know that, is Wayne on the call?
Yeah.
Doesn't look like has he joined? Yes,
He
he has. Hi, Wayne. Great, thanks for being here. And hi, Jim. I see Jim Dar on the call too now. So who wants to, David's out of the room now. I know he checked in with Tony Mariano. Wayne, do you want to offer your thoughts about the setup for town meeting and what you think about trying to provide people with a sense of it being a safe, comfortable place to come, given any concerns about COVID?
So I will express my personal opinion and try to convey as accurately as I can what I heard from the Board of Health when I met with them two weeks ago.
Okay, and then David can up.
Yeah. So in terms of logistics, the Board of Health did not at the time, and this was an opinion I shared, did not see any reason to delay or move the venue. The COVID numbers in terms of what is actually the main things that are being tracked these days are hospitalizations, positivity rates, and some of the other metrics that carried a lot of weight previously are much less considered much less indicative for a whole variety of reasons. And so they were not seeing a whole lot of concern in the information that they were getting from the state. And I don't see a whole lot of concern either, and I've continued to track it. Hospitalizations are up a very minor amount, not much. There's a slight uptick in the wastewater, which seems to be probably the most reliable leading indicator at this point. But even there, I'm not hearing any alarm bells. what we talked about was, okay, how do we make sure that people feel comfortable? And that was my chief concern. I wanted anyone who felt even immunocompromised to feel comfortable. And what we came up with is a couple of things. And one, this is predicated on my assessment that we do not have a controversial warrant. We're not voting on the town clerk. We don't have a dog leash law. We don't have deer hunting. We don't have pickleball. I don't see us getting 300 or 400 or 500 people out. The capacity in the auditorium with the back open is about 460. And then we have the cafeteria as well. And so it seemed to me that by designating certain portions of the auditorium as required social distance spacing, if you sit in that particular section, plus anyone who wants to be in the cafeteria so that they could have, basically move their chair around and be wherever they want. Plus, Dr. Berry suggested that we both bring in portable air filters, which the school has some, but also allow anyone who wants to bring their own air filter in to have them in the cafeteria. And it was their sense that with the widespread availability of N95 masks, that if people felt, a little bit risk averse, that between masking and the ability to have your own air filter and the ability to sit at a distance from people, that it should probably be adequate. And I think that was, I think it's fair to, I'm trying as accurately as I can to convey what I heard from them, and that's my personal opinion as well. And while I haven't seen anything in statistics over the last week that would cause me to change my view, we're all continuing to look at it, and we have the Board of Health will be meeting tomorrow, and then again they've tentatively scheduled for 2 weeks hence, so that if we need to make a last minute call a week before town meeting about changing things, we can. And in my judgment, staying the course is the greatest likelihood of least disruption. So I would not, if you ask my advice, it would be, let's stick with the schedule and stick with the venue.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. David, did you want to follow up with anything based on your discussions?
Yeah, well, really, first a question for Wayne and for the select board. Do you feel that the product in an outdoor setting, we've had several of those now, is noticeably inferior to the indoor setting?
I don't feel that the product is noticeably inferior. It's a whole lot more work on the part of a whole lot more people, including your public safety personnel.
If it's a small group, as you say, and we have the space at the school under the canopy, what is the there's a detail needed, I guess, but they probably have a detail anyway, don't they, on the inside one? And setting up some chairs, which we could have volunteers to. I guess I don't understand why.
Plus all the tech has to go outside, Dave. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But there's no lights up there, so we would have to change the time in the
No,
day.
it would be a daytime thing. It would be a weekend.
Okay, so you would.
So I'm about risk, okay? And I don't know. I find that the Board of Health has rearward looking data, okay? I look at forward looking data. I look at Europe, I look at China, I look at the world, and I see what I believe is coming, which is another, little spike. And I think about the largest, well, maybe not with spaghetti supper, which is a whole nother thing in the play, but I don't run the schools, so they do what they want. But we are about to plan, from a town perspective, the biggest single indoor gathering that we have had since the pandemic started. And to me, honestly, we're shouldering risk we don't have to shoulder. And I just wonder whether we've looked at it through that lens. I'm happy to go with, I knew that, you know, it'll be an unpopular stance, but I do think that's the point of view that I'm taking, is why take additional risk we don't have to, when we've proven we can run an effective outdoor meeting. And yeah, I get it, there's IT and there's this and there's that, but we can do it, and we can do it successfully, and we dramatically reduce the risk if it's in an outdoor venue. And that's my point. And I'm happy to be overruled, but that's my point.
Other comments on the question of staying the course, as Wayne said, or making a change?
The question is, has the warrant gone out, and does it, what date does it have printed on it, and will this cost a huge mishigas in the town?
Yeah, Jen told me today, in fact, that the book is at the printers. It'll be ready by the end of the week. So and mailed on she was going to arrange postage on Thursday so that it would be mailed out on Friday. So it's probably, I don't know that, I mean, assuming it's done, you know what I mean? It's close to done being printed, but
And
Steve, do you have a comment?
The only comment I would have, if it is posted and the moderator could correct me, is that kind of have to open the town meeting, then continue it to another date certain.
Yeah.
So some people would have to show up just to vote. to
Yeah,
continue.
yeah.
You don't have any more advance notice to just change it?
I think once it's posted, it's posted.
You can't unpost and repost?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's
well,
just like if the mailing's gone out.
Yeah, we've gone through that before, haven't we?
Yeah, so the answer is, yeah, once it's posted, it's posted. The sort of the legalities of it are the least of the difficulties. It's much more about, you've got to work with the PA people to find a date that works for them. You also need to coordinate with the Minuteman TV on their availability so that it can be broadcast. And so there are additional complications. So I mean that can all be worked out. Let's just say that if you accept David's analysis and say, okay, there's a risk here that we don't want to take. The cost of the insurance that you're going to have to pay is, some hard dollar cost in additional. It's a lot more expensive to do the outdoor setup. I don't know how much more expensive. But you'll pay more in that, and more time and attention of everybody involved to sort of reorganize it. And you'll have to figure out how exactly, once you do pick the new date, how we all publicize that. All of it is doable. It's not free, is my point.
Yes, I guess I would say that, if I would vote for staying the course, and I think as we get closer to it, those numbers do tick up a little bit more, where we start getting a little bit more nervous about it, we can still have it there and just say, okay, everybody wear a mask, and rather than doing, I mean, it would depend upon how things were, but I mean, there are many options of how we can deal with it. But I think the numbers, I would, the numbers do seem to be okay, that we should just move forward.
Well, actually, requiring a mask is not a stupid idea. That might be a good compromise. That's pretty low cost, right? Show up, wear a mask. I would support that.
Yeah. We could even, I wonder if the Board of Health still has a trailer full of masks that we could hand out when people check in.
Yeah, I think we see as we get closer, right?
Yeah, we have a meeting on the 19th, a regularly scheduled meeting. We can always call a special one if we needed to. I am also inclined to stay with what we've decided and keep monitoring the situation.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
Okay,
Yeah, on the other hand, I'd like to talk about the reduced quorum, because that's
Yeah.
always something I'm very, very supportive of.
So,
even when we don't have COVID.
all right, so let's move to that question. So we have, previously, during COVID, when we've had the outdoor meetings, we've reduced the quorum. The quorum is currently, is it 150, right? So we've had it as low as 75, and I think, didn't we have it at 100 the last time? Yeah. So any initial comments from anyone on the board, or then I will ask Wayne for his comment.
I guess if 150 is what, 2% of the town population? I don't know what it is of the.
5,200?
We're at about 3,900 to 4,000 registered voters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of reducing quorum. I never have, but nothing controversial on this.
Yes,
Really
that's
got us-
3.8%. We're only asking 3.8% of the population. I mean, the population is growing. And so the idea of reducing the quorum, I think, just means there's less of a representation.
I
Right.
agree with
Only if
that.
they
On
don't
the other
show.
hand,
Right,
see,
right.
if
we're-
there's nothing, kind of pressing or, if people don't have
Driving
as
people
any
to
skin
come.
in this game, they may not come. And then
Yeah.
on top of that, you add maybe a little uptick and they're a little more leery, then we don't get a meeting
We're not
either.
limiting, we're not putting a capacity constraint.
No, it's,
No.
right, it's the
So it has
minimum we
nothing to
need
do, it's just, it's the
Right.
practicality of get the meeting done and not have to go do phone banking, which
Yeah.
we've had to do in the past, so. Right, it's just a floor, it's not a ceiling.
But it's also, I mean,
I don't think
I-
calling is a problem. I mean, I think, we've never failed to get a quorum before.
It's taken some extra time.
Yes, it's
so-
taken some time, quite a bit of time on occasion. What is it? in
Especially the
finance? Is it
third day of
assistant
your
secretary?
town meeting, Nathan.
Yeah. I just want to make sure we all had some quality time together as a town.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
great.
right.
Yeah.
Um, I honestly, a quorum, I came from Concord where the quorum was very low, and now Steve tells me the quorum is 0 in Concord.
Oh, wow.
Most towns I've worked in have been zeros, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that quorums necessarily guarantee anything. People are either going to come or they're not going to come.
Right,
And-
but it does avoid the delay of,
And it,
avoids the delay.
in this case, I'd rather not sit around waiting for people to come, breathing other people's air until till the sick ones arrive.
But, just to, I don't know, support what Luke is referring to, there's another side to this, which is what we're trying to promote in town, in terms of participation. And it sends a signal, I think, that,
It does not promote participation.
well, no, I'm just saying, I think the quorum, though, is, either we shouldn't have one at all, or it
advocating for it.
represents kind of sort of the minimum democratic participation that we want in making decisions about the town's future. So I don't want to get hung up on this particular meeting in the quorum. I think we could still, decide to lower it, partly because we are still recovering from COVID, and hopefully we are not going back into a spike. But anyway, I do feel that message that's part of this.
Yeah.
Shall we, Wayne, do you have any comment on the quorum question for this particular town meeting?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Barney. I would not be in favor of reducing it for this meeting. While I actually agree with Kate and think that long-term, the right answer is probably a zero quorum. Because paradoxically, that actually tends to promote more participation as people worry about, what happens if, 10 yahoos show up and vote however they want. But that's a decision for town meeting itself to make. The legislature gave select boards an extraordinary emergency power to do something that normally you wouldn't have the power to do, which is you can sort of take the town meeting's prerogative to change its quorum. And just because you have the power doesn't mean you should use it. And I think you only use it if you really need it. And if I were worried enough about the health situation that I thought that we ought to be moving outside, then I'd probably be in favor of reducing the quorum. But since my read of the situation and my read of other people's behavior is that I don't think it's going to. What's going to keep people away is not a concern about COVID. It's just they may not be interested. But I think our history has been that the first night of a town meeting, we may wait 10 minutes, but it's pretty rare that we don't get a quorum for the first night. It's the second and Nathan's famous third night where we've sometimes had to wait. But first, I'm just not worried about it for this year, and I do think it's taking an extraordinary move that is uncalled for at this time.
All right, so my sense, does anyone want to propose a lowering of the quorum?
Well, I see which way the wind is blowing.
Yeah, I
so-
mean, it sounds like we're not gonna lower it,
Bother.
but let me just mention that Mr. Davis has the luxury of participating remotely by Zoom because we took extraordinary measures to, in my opinion, make a smarter and broader way of participation, which is let people be remote and let people show up. In fact, Mr. DeCock very unusually did both tonight. I've never heard of before, but that's great. So, I mean, my point is that just because the legislature gave the boards extraordinary powers or whatever, we're getting to smarter stuff about the way we do business. The pandemic is pushing us to be smarter. This is an example of being smarter. More people can participate in different places.
Yeah.
I don't think making a smaller quorum and getting on with it is dumb. I think it's smart because I've been in many of these meetings and we've waited around and it's a pain. And if people don't want to show, then don't show, but let's not penalize the rest of them. So even though I know that we will, once again, I'll be in the minority, but I think we should move the quorum to 100.
Well, I'm happy to entertain a motion. But if no one wants to put a motion forward, then,
I'm gonna move it.
okay.
All right, I move the select board vote to reduce the quorum of the April 25th, 2022 annual town meeting from 150 votes
Who?
to, well, we're gonna lower it to 75 voters.
Yeah, man, 100.
Okay, I'll do it at 100 then.
I second at 100.
Okay.
Wait, 125.
Okay, any more discussion? All right, hearing none, let's take a roll call vote. A motion is to reduce the quorum to 100. Right.
Oh, you want me to start?
Yeah.
You're looking, I'll go along.
Well, the wind.
No, I said,
A front just came through.
No, but I said, I mean,
Yeah,
I don't think we should change it. It's a slippery slope, but again, I don't think there's much on this that's very controversial, so it's gonna be a short town meeting. Unless
hope.
Wayne gets
We hope.
talking, but
Right, so ask.
Oscar Lilloye, Brown,
I'm sorry, did Barney, did you go?
no, I did
She
not,
goes last. So using her chair prerogative.
yeah,
Brown, nay?
Modell, aye?
Reed, aye.
Arnold, nay.
Oh.
But that's fine,
2 to
that's
3.
fine, 3 to 2. So we've voted to lower the quorum to 100. Okay, let's go on to, we don't need to do the vote final positions. We really did that. This was a misnomer in the agenda.
Yeah.
The assignment of the articles, since it's, now,
Do that another day.
9:34, unless somebody wants to argue, we have to do that before the 19th.
No, we don't.
Because the motions handbook can include, it doesn't need to include who's moving the motion, right? So, okay, and then, yeah, people could, if people want to indicate before them which ones they want to do, that would be helpful, and Lou, particularly since you're not going to be there,
I'll take the crappy
on
ones.
the 19th. You can take the crappy ones?
Yeah.
Okay, and the CPC?
CPC, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have to do my own little spiel.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
you've got a big, yeah.
Okay, before we get to that though, Jonathan DeCock has very kindly joined us for the discussion that was within the town administrator's report about the EV chargers at the school, and the decision we need to make tonight, or at least is before us tonight, we may or may not feel ready to make it, but about voting to determine at what level we're gonna charge for the usage of the stations. So with that, Jonathan, I had sent out your document that you provided yesterday, so it's not in the packet, everybody, but,
I don't think Jonathan's on. I think Bob is on, but I don't see Jonathan.
oh, sorry, he's right here.
May I approach the bench?
Oh,
It's not in the
Have to
revised
swear you in
packet.
again.
he's moved on me.
So you
Are
mean
you
this-
talking about the one that Jen
Yeah,
sent
this
out
little
today?
Picture here, yeah.
I don't think
No,
she
it's
included
not-
it
it's
in
not in
that.
the packet, no.
It's the piece I sent, no, that's from the packet.
Those
correct.
are the decision
But,
points.
what I sent you yesterday afternoon was Jonathan's very extensive report on, where we are with the charging stations. So, welcome, Jonathan. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. And Jonathan was, a key leader on the, Energy Task Force in, the whole effort to get these, charging stations set up at the school parking lot. So we don't have tons of time, Jonathan, so, but it would be great if you wanted to just give us a very brief reminder of, how these charging stations are set up, and then what we need to decide in terms of pricing.
Okay,
That'd be
sure.
great.
So I just want to say, I'm very happy that they are finally installed. It has been 4 years getting it done. My goal with it was to enable the switch to electric vehicles. And in particular, by doing it, by having a place where you come to work, where you can charge there. So people at the school that are working there now have that. And so I'm very happy that we were successful in doing this, especially no cost to the town. I think this is great. And I also want to point out that the entire process, although it was long and tiresome, all of the boards worked together very well to make it happen. They didn't all get their way in every situation, but the select board, the Energy Task Force, the FinCom, the planning board, the school committee, the historical commission, they all had to weigh in at some point, and I've probably forgotten one. But literally everyone worked together really well. So I think it's great. In any case, everything is now set up. I volunteered to help when I saw them actually get installed, to actually get the charging and stuff running so that the town actually makes revenue off of the electricity that we're now selling. And so it is now set up in a way that is approximately going to enable the town to break even, or better, depending on how much volume we can actually achieve. And so, roughly, people at home pay about 25 cents per kilowatt hour for the total electric that they have, which is the generation and the distribution. We are charging 24 cents, so it's slightly less. This is to encourage people to actually use them. If we were to charge more than you pay at home, we would probably not have that. So that's an encouragement. However, it's not so much less that we expect hordes of people to show up. So
Lines, yeah.
exactly. So that's that. There is an interesting problem with the way Eversource is charging us for the electricity, which are these things called demand charges. There's a long explanation for them. The short story with it, I'll try not to make it a long story, but basically it works great for a business to have this, but not for an electric charging meter. So the Department of Public Utilities is trying to get Eversource to come up with a better meter rate. In the meantime, we've had to kind of limit the amount of electricity that we throw out through these things so that we don't get charged an excessive amount by Eversource, okay? And that happens to be around 10 kilowatts. So, but a single car charging can get the full 7.2, which is capable of. And once you get more than one car, then it starts to slow them down, essentially. But with the teachers, I think that's a fine thing. And I'll also point out that we're very carefully not charging for being plugged in after you're fully charged. A lot of places do that. We're intentionally not doing that because we don't want teachers to have to run out between classes and move their cars. I think that would be ridiculous. So things are in really good shape right now. There's part of the town's employment base is a guy, Steve Bastek. He's taking over as the network manager. Right now, he and I are the only two people that have access to the ChargePoint portal, and I had it just in order to set all this stuff up. Steve Bastek is going to be taking over. And so if you wanted to make changes in the future, or if we needed to make changes in the future, he is the one that has that capability, okay? Tim Goddard also had the capability, so you might want to have, an additional person in case something happens.
Right.
But it should be a paid town employee. I don't think we should have,
Yeah.
eventually I should be removed from this because I shouldn't be controlling how much you guys make. So, so anyways, everything is in good shape right now. The one thing that we've left to the select board that you need to decide is what kind of electricity we're going to be powering these things on. And this is a little bit complicated because when a new meter shows up, Eversource starts charging based on their basic rate, which it turns out is a lot more expensive than everything on our CCA. So any of the choices you pick is better than Eversource. I think you have basically three choices. You can decide tonight. You can decide tonight, or you can decide at some point in the future, but we should move to something. The three choices are the standard, which is what everybody uses at home unless they've opted for something different. There's the basic, which is basically brown power, powered by coal. I think people would laugh at us if underneath the solar array, we powered electric vehicles by coal. Call me crazy. And then there's the 100% green, which is what the solar array is producing. The choices you have on that, basically the amount that we pay for the electricity is always less than the amount that we're currently charging, because the way the meter runs is we have a reduced, relative to a residential, we have a reduced amount for the distribution charge. So that's what enables the town to make a little bit of money off of each transaction. It's literally on the order of like 2 or 3 cents. And so whichever one of these you pick will make a little bit more or a little bit less. Bob Zog and I are actually recommending the 100% green. And there's a few reasons for that. And I think basically I can boil it down to this. If you try to make the most money, you'll get like half the people in town to be happy with it, but the other half will be upset that you're using brown power to do it, right? If you try to go the opposite extreme and do something that's, too green, in this case, it's perfectly fine to go to 100% green, but you could have all the environmentalists happy, but all the people that are concerned about fiscal responsibility unhappy. In this case, I think the 100% green actually gets us the best of both worlds, where you can both make money for the town, you can be environmentally sensitive, and you actually end up at a place where the users pay less than what they would at home. So it's a win for everyone if you select the 100% green.
You might be able to make a little bit more per kilowatt by selecting the standard or the other one. But I would worry that you would then lose some of the possible volume. And really with this situation, we're looking for volume, right? We need a lot of people to be charging. I would like to encourage Carlisle residents to charge there during non-school hours, right? You know, it is cheaper and it does help the town. So it's a good thing to do. So.
It's a clear.
So these are the three, sorry, in your packet is where you have these three choices that
Yes.
Jonathan was just describing at the end. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Jonathan, so the electrons that the solar collector collects go somewhere and some other juice comes in through the charger then, right? I guess I never understood. I thought it came right out of the thing, but I guess that's
No, it's not
ridiculous.
direct, and it has to do with the ownership of the various electrical parts there. And so
Okay.
Eversource needs to own the parts that feed the chargers because we use EV Make Ready, but Ameresco owns the part that feeds the grid.
Right,
And so it actually has to go from the solar panels to the grid. It literally goes across the road,
right,
and then comes back in.
right,
But that little bit is
Right.
Eversource.
right. But our electrons don't find their way back. They go
They
into
do.
some pool. Oh, they do
Well, I
actually.
mean, once it hits the grid, they're gonna find their way back. So,
Regardless, in minority, but not an actual conduit of.
it's not, yeah, it's not
Yeah,
a
it's
spe-
pooled,
dedicated conduit.
It's pooled and then we reduce.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So,
One other question. In your report, you talked about 3 arrays and 6 arrays or something. I mean, how many stations do we have
there are
up?
currently 3 stations. Each one has 2 ports, so
Yeah.
we can charge 6 cars.
So
at a
you
time
can
right
charge
now.
6.
Yep, and that's expandable. I
Right.
think we have more than we need right now. There
Yeah.
is one employee at the school who parks there every day and charges, and that's about
Yeah.
all we're getting right now.
Okay,
But I think as we get more electric
Okay.
vehicles, you'll see more there.
okay.
But I think we're good for a few years. And then we do have the ability to expand to more
And it's
charges.
a credit card or what's the method by which
It's
one?
the charge point. So anyone who has an
They have an
electric
app
vehicle
or something.
probably has
Yeah,
the
you can
charge
do it
point app, and
via
you just
app.
do it through their app. Yeah.
Other questions, comments?
I had a couple. I think we have a little deficit right now because of the kind of glitch in the
Yes.
stuff. So would it make any sense to try to recoup some of that by using the standard for a while and then switching to the 100% in order to
I
kind of
don't
speed that
think
up?
you would recoup it that way. I could be wrong, but really what you're looking for, I think, is the volume of people charging. Because if you look at it, the difference is gonna be, about like 1.50 cents or something, after, basic cuts take out. Maybe 2 cents.
It's like 2.5 cents. right?
Okay, 2.5
So it's what,
cents.
14 cents a car?
Yeah, well, it depends on how long you charge,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But what you might end up with is a situation where people intentionally won't go there to charge because you're not using green power, right?
So you're more counting on residents who didn't put in a charging station in their garage or
Who want
did and they're so
slightly
cheap
cheaper
that they
electricity
want-
or
they
are
want to
altruistic
save-
and want the town to make money off them, whatever.
Uh-huh, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I think, that seems, I'm not sure how many people are gonna drive, to the school to plug in if they can plug in it.
Yeah,
home.
and
It's to save
and
it
I can ride
plenty
my
of-
electric bike back home while it's charging for 4 hours here. I mean, what
Right.
am I stand around in the playground,
Well, I think.
How much of a deficit do we have?
So, yes, this is an interesting problem. So the reason that I got involved is we saw the electric chargers get installed, but the town hadn't set up the interface with ChargePoint, and so we were giving out the electricity for free. And as soon as it hit the app showing that we were giving out the electricity for free, literally, it was like over Christmas vacation, hordes of people showed up to consume it.
Oh,
And so we gave out a lot of electricity for free.
People see that on the app.
Yes.
Well, because if you
Same
go on the
problem there.
Charge Point app, they will tell you where there are charging stations.
and yeah.
Yeah. So-
Takes care of everything.
So
Are you ready to go?
in any case, if you actually look at the charges, the vast majority of the charges were not per kilowatt hour, it was these demand charges.
Uh-huh.
And the demand charges added up to over $900. And so we are currently in the hole, I believe, by about $1,000. I would have to get the exact amount.
It's pretty much what the town accountant said today.
Yeah. So, I don't know
who you want to blame, you can blame me, right? Because I wasn't around to
But you
fix
put,
it.
you're
but-
putting a cap on it now, you, at the 9.9 or
Yeah,
something.
so the demand charges aren't gonna happen anymore. I need to check the bill to make sure, but we believe that's not gonna be happening. And I believe we're charging about as close as we can in terms of the 24 cents. If we charge much more than that, then we're going to probably lose people because they can charge cheaper elsewhere or at home particularly. And yeah, then we need to decide, do we think we're going to get more volume by using green power? Or do we think we're going to make it up on the extra 2 cents by using the standard? So you could argue it either way. I really don't have, I don't have the crystal ball that's going to tell you which way to go. And I think either answer is viable.
And
So-
if we wanted to try one of these and see what happens over a period of time, what's involved in changing the option? Is it, again, we have to vote on it, and then is it, what's the technical, way that it gets changed?
So this is how any meter gets changed for the town, right? And so I believe you would ask the town administrator to call Eversource and change it.
And so
Not
similar,
Eversource, it's Colonial.
Yeah, Colonial, somebody
yeah.
changes it.
And so similarly, if we decided to see, try this out for a couple of months and see what happens, we could then make a different decision in a couple of months.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, right now, the Eversource is charging us $18 a month for the existence of the meter. So you're not gonna lose, going forward, you're not gonna lose a ton of money, right? If you choose one or the other and we don't get a whole lot of volume. So your risk is relatively minor going forward. And, I look at it as that's a sunk cost, right?
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. And we don't know what'll happen over the summer either, right? When they're not teachers coming
Right.
to school every day.
Yeah, and I think when we don't have teachers coming there, that's when we want to try to encourage town residents to come there. Or, if they're visiting Ferns, the library, town hall.
Our employees over here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Did you want to come make a comment? Come, please, yeah,
Sorry, I know I'm not part of this here.
Inter- yeah, thank you.
My wife.
Yes.
But I work at a place that has had electrical chargers for some time. And what we've found is actually the employees who are on those chargers all the time are our younger employees who are renters. And
Yes.
anyone who's renting in town or renting or in a condo,
Right.
they don't have the option of
Mm.
changing the configuration of the home. Also, anyone commuting from a city, say even the smaller cities around here, and they really have no option other than these public
Yep.
chargers. And so I think you'll find they're used in the summer. I know the ones we have on our Mida campus are.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, well, I guess I'll speak first and say my own feeling is that we should try the optional green. And that's because we have said as a board that environmental sustainability is something we care about and is one of our goals. And I think we should try that.
100% green. I mean,
Yeah, sorry, the optional green 100 rather than the
the
standard.
optional
or-
green.
Yeah, or the
got it.
basic.
Yeah.
The
got it.
basic I would rule out because
Yeah,
it's cold
basic,
based.
no, forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with optional green. Me too.
Nathan,
He just looks grumpy. We
he
won't ask
does. Getting late, huh?
I look grumpy.
You do, not anymore. No. Now you're smiling.
I guess, I don't know the finances of it all. There is an option that's not 100% green, but is green and could allow us to recoup more of the cost. And, this was supposed to be neutral. But I guess we could go, I'm not sure, do you start on 100% green? And I'm not sure what you learn there. than if you start on like the standard and then if people aren't coming, if you're not getting the usage, then you go to the 100% green. You know, because we were talking earlier about, you know, we could always change it. I think if you start with 100% green, you're not going to learn. So we're just going to stay there. If we start with the standard and we try to recoup some of the money, you know, I mean, clearly over Christmas, people weren't worried about green energy. They were all just plugging in, and we were probably at whatever, you know, whatever the power company gives us. You know, I'm sure it wasn't green power because we hadn't selected anything.
Right.
So I just worry about the recovering of the costs. I mean, certainly, you know, environmental sustainability is very important. This is why we put these solar panels up. So I'm not at all saying that, you know, let's not go green because we're not environmentally sensitive. But I'm, you know, I'll go with 100% green, but I'm just not sure then the argument of we could always change it really makes sense, because we're just going to stay on 100% green. We're not going to learn anything.
Well, so I will say that for the past 3.5 months, we've been on Eversource Basic. So we know what that's doing, right? And it's not a huge amount of people that are clamoring to be there right now, right? It's basically, we've got this one regular charger and the sporadic person that shows up nights or weekends. So if we go to 100% green, then I can change the electronic announcement that says that we're on 100% green. In theory, that's going to show up in the app.
How does Eversource parse the electrons? How do they know?
I have no idea how they do this at a global level, because I'm sure they just aggregate it all.
Right. So, I mean, is it like, you know, you're paying, I mean, I always wonder, you go in.
Like carbon offset.
Right. Well, yeah, right. Exactly. You're not necessarily not getting electrons from coal.
That's right. You're not actually getting anything. It's
You're
just
getting
where
what you get, no matter what you do. You're just sort of,
Correct.
so it's kind of BS
So
anyway.
well, it's,
Well, it is and it isn't, because we're also on the CCA, right? And so the CCA is actually what we're paying. We're not paying Eversource for the generation.
the
We're
community
paying the
aggregation.
community
Right, but
aggregation.
we're not getting a different energy. We're actually not getting different energy.
No,
There
but
isn't a different energy pipe.
that is putting that energy.
Somebody
in
is, right,
because
yes.
we're
In
consuming
the
it.
long run, you're right. If more
We're
people,
supporting the
right,
the
right.
demand.
And so that's important. So the optics
Yeah.
are important.
Exactly.
And so I actually almost don't care what we learn. I think the optics are probably, unless we start losing tons of money, I mean. Which
we
it
lost
sounds like we're
tons of
not gonna-
money because we didn't charge anything.
No, I know. So
Yeah,
we're gonna,
and-
we're
right.
not, right.
And what I think that proves is that people weren't looking for green energy, they were looking for cheap energy.
Or
Right,
free.
But we're supposed to
Free
be,
energy.
right, but we're supposed to be above that fray, right?
No, I
So-
totally get it. So I'm just saying that, between the fact that, we're going to be cheaper than home, and it will also
Right,
be
I agree.
green, hopefully that will add to the allure, then people will come here to, and we'll get more.
That's my hope, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm sorry, downtown Carlisle is not a hot spot for people to show up.
Where do we build a Walmart?
Yeah, so,
Wait till that new castle, that
yeah,
playground
that's
goes
right.
in.
Actually, people
Oh
come
my
into the
goodness.
castle, you know, 'cause-
Yes, could
Well,
be,
actually,
could
let's
see
go
some
100
weekend-
Let's go 100% green, and let's
Okay.
just,
Yeah.
Yeah,
let's keep
all right.
going.
Let's do it.
Nathan, are you making that motion?
Yep, that's my motion.
Okay. All righty.
Luke
Called the
seconded.
9:57 PM
seconded.
resolution.
Okay. Any more discussion? All right, let's take a roll call vote. Arnold, I.
Oh, you'll vote first on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Oscar, aye, yeah.
I'm gonna vote last.
I can
Vote
see what's
aye.
happening.
Reed, I.
Brown eye.
All right.
Right.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
all.
folks.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Jonathan.
thank you, Jonathan, appreciate it.
Really
Did the dog bark
appreciate
on
it.
your drive?
We
Yeah.
didn't notice.
You did know, it
We
did?
drove past really fast.
Yeah.
All right, good night.
Thanks.
All right,
Yeah.
Bye, Lee,
All
thank
right,
you.
thanks very much.
Bye.
All right, I think we are done, are
Yeah,
we
you
not?
don't, yeah, you want Steve to
Uh,
have his first meeting to end on time, that's.
Yeah,
really-
look at it, it's 9:58, Steve. Any last comments, Steve?
Concord Select Board went to 11:30 last night, so.
Woo,
a good
okay,
news,
aren't you
Deb.
glad you're with
Another
us?
reason we're not in Concord. We're
Yeah.
glad we're not Concord.
All righty, I'd like a motion to adjourn,
Wait,
please.
whoa, whoa,
Oh,
whoa, whoa,
oh,
sorry, no,
liaison
I'm gonna
reports.
chew up your 2 minutes,
Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry, Luke. Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry,
so a
sorry.
couple of liaison things.
Okay.
One is the DPW. I talked with Gary and Chris about the fees. So there was some confusion. right? So right now they charge 100 per grave, right? So it's not a lot, it's a grave, right? And then there's 100 per grave for the perpetual care, right? So they were concerned that if we raise that too dramatically, which I guess 200 to 800 kind of is, that there'd be a rush on plots, which we kind of saw.
Yeah.
So they were talking about a smaller increase in that, so maybe like 150 per grave and then 150 for the perpetual care. But again, like we spoke the last time, they lose money on the opening, right? So apparently there are 4 different types of openings. They can open, let's do a full burial on a weekend, a cremation, or a cremation weekend. I don't think we should split hairs. And I mean, they were kind of for, you know, because it's less work for the cremation and stuff, but really.
Yeah.
You know, and then regular versus weekend, I think at the end of the day, that's kind of gonna be a wash. Anyway, so we, basically, if we increase that, so if we went like 150, 150, and then like 400 from 200 to the burial fees, you know, they don't know the exact number, right? As to where the break even point would be. But again, their concern was that if we raise it too dramatically, I mean, I don't think people are gonna start opening graves just to open them, right? But again, and you know, their point too is that it's for Carlisle residents, past Carlisle residents, right? So try to cut people some slack. So in a sense, it would be going to 300 and 400 as opposed to 800 and staying at 200. And then they wouldn't lose on the cost, on the guy's time to go in and do the openings. So, so that's where, I don't know if we necessarily need to vote on it, maybe. I don't know, so we don't get another rush on graves next week.
Isn't this going to town meeting though? Isn't this already in the warrant?
No, we didn't have an actual dollar amount. It was just what we voted on.
So this would go in the motions handout. Yeah.
So,
Well, I definitely think we should cover the costs, and so we're not
Yeah.
losing money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a point that I brought up in that meeting was that, you know, Gary, he did think that the opening was the bigger concern for him than the lot itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he reiterated that.
So we did vote on the
Yeah, we voted
dollars
on the
as a
dollar
board.
amount, yeah.
So,
Let me just clarify one thing, though. So for instance, the lots that we sold tonight.
Yep.
That does not include the charge for the opening, does it?
No,
Until
the
they
opening
open it.
happened, the opening happened at opening.
Okay, so those guys didn't say, might not have said that
No.
much.
No,
If
see,
we,
so that's
yeah.
what we do. We just put a false statement in the mosquito. It's
Yeah.
gonna be $1,000. We'll sell them all. Yeah.
Okay, no, I just
yeah.
wanted to clarify though. So I think it's important for us to stop losing money on the
Yes.
thing.
Right.
I
yes,
think we should also increase the somewhat the price of the plots, but
Yeah.
let's definitely cover our costs for opening.
Right.
And,
so do you, are you ready to propose a different fee structure?
Yeah, so I think
Okay.
basically what I was saying was, you know, I think Gary's even a little skeptical of even going over the 100. But if we did 300 for the grave opening and the perpetual care, so 300 total. Right?
And,
And then the
That
opening
is-
would be,
And then the opening fee would be, I mean,
currently 200
yeah, it's
now?
currently 200, which they take a shellacking on.
And
Yeah.
how much of a
Because
shellacking?
because
does
it, well,
take?
it's a couple of guys, you know, at least a half a day over the weekend equipment, right? So so that's significant,
Yeah.
you know? I mean, yeah, it's all overtime. You know, I mean, obviously if they do it during the week, it's less, but who knows when it's gonna be, right?
right,
So, you know, somewhere probably in the $500 to $600 range would be more reasonable. You know, because then there's also that whole thing too with the, you know, like when they just bought a new tractor, right?
right,
I mean, and you need this for this sort of thing. So that in a sense would feed that fund
as
as
well.
well.
Yeah. So what you're suggesting is 300 for the grave and the perpetual care.
Yeah.
And 500 for the opening?
Yeah, I think
You
5
said
would
5
be-
to 600, but
Yeah, I
500?
think 5 would be fine. Yeah.
And what we had said, what did we vote on before?
It was 802. We kept the opening the same.
Gotcha. So it was 500 and
It was
800,
800 and 200, yeah, because we got up to
800
1,000.
and
which was-
200,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, and I think we should revisit the opening fees, once a year or once every
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah,
Right.
based
Just
on
because-
costs,
based
right?
On costs.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so, Luke, do you want to make a motion to that effect tonight?
Sure, yeah. So I move that would we be
But the
considered the
promotion.
cemetery commission?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that we as the cemetery commission, change the grave fee to $150. The perpetual care fee to $150 per grave. And the grave opening fee to $500.
Second,
Okay.
yeah, and that we recommend that to the, make a motion to that effect to the
At town meeting,
town meeting.
yeah. All right.
So
and
when
that-
you buy the plot, you pay 150, that's all you pay?
You pay 300, because you pay the perpetual care piece too.
All right,
Yeah.
that's fine,
And then the
thanks.
500. All right, any more discussion? All right, let's take a roll call vote then. Luke, you want to go first?
Oscar Lilo, aye? Yeah.
Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Model I.
Reed, I.
All right,
Okay, sorry, and then the last thing for CPC, we did finally vote on everything. So we are gonna have 5 things going to town meeting. I don't have the dollar numbers off the top of my head, but basically it's like 325,000 for the castle project. They've got about $1 million in fundraising funds, so if we need people to fundraise, they're the people to do it. There are a lot of stipulations in there because some of the things that they have, CPA funds can't be used for, but in the grand scheme of things, it's, it's a small percentage of the overall cost. The second thing is, it's a 10% match for a dog park at Banta Davis. So, one of the things with the grant application is that they need to, not our grant, the dog park grant, is that they need to have a 10% match of town funds. So that's what they're going for. I think it's about 30,000. That'll be up at Banta Davis. They'll present. And then the dam at the Cranberry Bog. So not nearly as big as Greeno, but it was unclear as to exactly what needs to be done. So they're basically, this is for the engineering piece of it. It's 11,500. It's actually going to be more because we didn't put the contingency in there, but it's going to be like 12,500 to do the initial piece to determine exactly what it's going to cost. And then they'll come back with another application for fall town meeting. Yeah, because it was 100 and some odd thousand, but it wasn't really clear that was going to get us there, or it might have been too much. So they'll come back with a better number. There's an application from the Housing Trust to top up the $100,000 fund that they have. So that's moving to town meeting, and then an additional application from the Housing Trust for $25,000 for rental assistance. That'll be a joint venture with COA and Housing Trust. So. Yeah.
So how much is the top up? Didn't we already do the 100?
Around 60,000 because we're gonna probably use 25K for rental assistance this year out of our current funds.
So what did we originally put in? 100 or 50?
100, yeah.
And we've used 40, or we will have used, or 60 of it, I guess, by the time.
We will have probably used around 60.
So it's just like the
Yeah.
working, it's the working fund, basically.
Yes, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, we're also producing the new housing production plan. By the way, I'm gonna put a plug in for that because, Thursday, we're having a forum. I hope some of you will have a chance to, dial into that.
Thank you.
Be sitting with 60,000 people at Yankee Stadium.
woo. Woo.
Yeah, I guess
So I will
somebody's
not
gotta
be
do
there.
it.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. All right, great. Thanks, Luke.
Yeah, sure.
Luke, can I ask a question?
No,
Okay.
I thought he was the one that wanted to, go to bed.
yeah, Nathan does.
Who,
Yeah.
me?
From you to
I'm
the-
already in bed.
Yeah.
Yep. Is this your last Board of Selectmen meeting
I think so.
No.
or Select Board meeting? Other than town,
God
other
willing,
than
God willing.
Wow.
Yeah, no, because I'm not here on the 19th. And then,
Oh.
Do we usually have one after?
We don't have one after that in April.
Oh,
Oh,
see?
gosh, and May
Well,
10th. Before,
That's-
Have a meeting before.
this is before our first select board meeting,
See?
isn't it?
You
Really
should
the
come to
Just in
the-
calendar.
case, I just want to say, you know, we've been on the board for how long together now? Forever, I think.
6 years, yeah, you, no.
Nathan took a
5.
year off
Five,
and he
yeah.
just couldn't stay away from
Exactly.
Yeah.
you.
I like to think I'm the reason he came.
I
Yeah.
came back despite Luke being on the board.
We did a break.
But it's been a true pleasure working with you on the board, Luke, and hopefully you're not going to stop being on all of the things that you're working on.
Maybe not
but-
TPC, but everything.
But it's been truly a pleasure, and you've been a great mentor to me, and you know, your energy and the amount of time that you spend in the town is truly awe-inspiring, and you're going to be tremendously missed. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
making it up here as you're going along, but thank you.
I was.
You're full of, yeah, you're full of you know what, but I appreciate it. Thank
I'll tell you what I really think later.
Yeah, no, exactly, yeah. I've
Yeah.
seen it in the text. Yeah.
Like you're dead to me, but
Well, we should have planned this better because here we are at the end of the
We
meeting.
could, no, but we should invite him to the next board.
The
To,
one in May.
yeah,
One
give
one
him
of
a
the
proper
reasons I
send
got
off.
off.
just to be cruel.
No,
Yeah,
we should have a proper send off.
Well, we will certainly.
Do it at
send
town
out-
meeting
I
with a
was just gonna
bang,
say,
yeah.
we'll
Yes,
just
we
do
will do it.
at
It will
town
happen at town meeting, but
Then we'll really embarrass you there.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Right.
But Luke, I do want to say just for myself that, you know, I came on the board, when you were reelected for your, you know, last term. And so we've served together for 3 years and, it's really been a great experience for me and I have appreciated your support for me a lot. And we may have had a few little exchanges, but you know, that's the good thing about being able to, you know, work together and communicate. And I've learned a lot from you. And I just wanted to express my appreciation before this large audience
Yeah, I
that
know,
we
yeah,
have here.
same.
But to, you know, publicly say thank you.
Yeah, me too. We go back on a lot of
Yeah.
different boards and
Long time, yeah.
I appreciated your support when I was on the other side of the table and I'm sorry we only had a couple of years together, but thanks for, especially, you know, the behind the scenes work on all these departments. You know, people don't realize, I think, the relationship building that, you know, the many departments you've interfaced with, you've probably done the most of anybody I know.
It's gonna, everybody's gonna get to share in the wealth though.
I know, I'm cringing.
Yeah.
I actually was thinking about that. I was
Yeah.
thinking about
Yeah.
that long list of assignments you have and how we're gonna divvy those up. Luckily, you know, there'll be at least one new person.
Right.
And I see Brian on the call. So Brian, if you're the guy, you better get ready.
There he is.
Yeah. Well, and I guess,
You don't
really
have to
hard
say
to,
it.
yeah,
You
well,
don't have to say
it's- good, then I won't. Yeah.
Save it for Tom.
I will actually write you a card. I prefer that.
Oh,
All right. Well, then I do think a motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Second, I will second that.
All right, I'm sure we have a lot of discussion. And, all right, roll call vote. Who wants to go first tonight?
Brown
We'll
eye.
let
Brown
Luke
eye.
go last.
See, yeah, Nathan.
Odell, aye.
Reed, I.
Arnold, I.
Oscar Lilo, aye.
All right, your last vote,
Scrambled it.
Luke.
Good night, everyone.
Ready to retire for a bit.
And
Yeah.
Steve.
Oh, thank you.